Searching for what? As one goes to the racetrack year after year, one notices certain individuals who are there every day. People who are strangely dressed and as desperate of eye as I am. There was one who stank badly and who had diseased skin. I often picked him up as he hitchhiked in, and I believe he slept in the bushes along the freeway. His theory was that all the jockeys got together before the races and decided which number would win that day. They chose a number, and only that number would win all day long. And that's why all those sons of bitches were rich. They all simply bet that number. And there was another guy I had seen for years at the track. I was in a hurry, and he bumped me with his elbow, and I said, "Hey, Mac, watch that shit." And he said, "I've got a mind to rub your face in the cement." And I said, "Wait a minute." And I took my coat off and I laid it on a bench. But when I turned around, he was gone. I still see him at the track, and the strangest thing is that he seems to be getting thinner and weaker, as by comparison, I seem to get younger and stronger. But I don't think it's my imagination. I think he must be having a long string of losers. And then there's the blonde. She was fat and slow, but it didn't seem to matter. She had a way of picking winners, and some of the winners were long shots, day after day. She bet the horses calmly, in a very offhand manner, and now I see her in the clubhouse, dressed fine, still fat, with some young guys at her side, and she knows that I know, but I don't say anything. Since I'm in the clubhouse too, maybe I've done some whoring in my own way. There's another one, dresses dapper, smokes good cigars, but he never bets. He just pokes around in the trash cans, reaching his fingers down into the wet coffee containers, napkins, ripped tickets, old newspapers, stale hot dog buns, beer puke. He just reaches down in there, inhaling on his cigar. Searching for what? Then there's one who starts running when he sees a late flash on the board. They are putting them into the gate, and he starts running to the window like he's had a message from heaven. And he's right. The last flash of the board is the most important, but you can't win that way either. He's poorly dressed and desperate, and come to think of it, I haven't seen him for some weeks now. I think I've been around the track longer than any of the other bettors. Maybe not longer than the hot walkers, the trainers, or the jocks, but they've been there longer than me. But not the bettors. All my women, and there have been plenty of them, have said with one voice, "My God, every time I see you, you start talking about the horses. You start talking about the horses for hours. My God, what a dull man you are. And then you write poems about the horses. Don't you realize how dull your horse poems are? Nobody understands them." Here's another. Bukowski. Starting it off right. Charles Bukowski, Open All Night. New poems. That's right. New poems. Just keeps publishing them, even though he's dead. How about that? Another poem about a horse. Dan Eve, are you with us? Seem to be in the chat.
I'm with you and definitely not against you.
All right. Let's see what's happening today in the world, etc. on the Thomas Hunt Show. Today is Tuesday, March 31st, 2020. We're almost out of March. We almost made it. I'd just like to ask everybody to give us a thumbs up and a share. Subscribe down below. Hit the bell for notifications. And then get ready later. We're going to have call-ins. But right now, let's see what's been happening in the world.
I'm kind of hoping that that tomorrow, my girlfriend, because I'm 80% through my home tasks that I've set during this period, that she'll turn around and go, "April Fools, I invented COVID because I wanted you to get stuff done around the house." And then we all go back to work and it's all good. And I'll be happy because I'll be like, "Yeah, I got some jobs done."
It was all a joke. It was all a dream, right? It was like the Newhart show. We're just going to wake up, and the whole thing was a dream.
I used to read COVID magazine.
Covidin. But let's see what's been happening in the last 24 hours with the price of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is up almost 1% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,472, a high of 6,595, and a low of 6,335. Kind of all over the board today. That's $1 for 15,449 Satoshis. Checking out the Dow Jones Industrial Average, they're open for a change, and they're up slightly. The Dow Jones up 0.31, about a third of a point, in the last 24 hours, with a last of 22,396. Above a previous close, only slightly above 22,324. Money printer, activate.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Infinite amount of cash. No need to worry. Checking out the coronavirus cases worldwide previously on this show.
You need to, I was going to say, you need to refresh.
Well,
it's not looking good.
That's part of the drama. Come on, man.
I mean,
it's going to go down, obviously. I've heard it's going to zero. I've heard that, the summer heat makes it go away.
China.
All you need to do is wear a condom. It's really easy. So previously we had 752,000 infected worldwide, around 36,000 dead. 819,141 infected, 39,796 dead. So about up 3,000 on the dead. That's about a 10% increase from 36,000. And then also, of course, around 750 up to 820. That's a pretty good increase. That's about 70 or so, 70,000 increase worldwide. And we're tapping on that big million number, right? You got to say, previously it seemed impossible. I didn't think we could do it. It feels a lot like the Bitcoin price, like a thing that you've been watching for a long time and it keeps going up. And, you don't want this thing to go up. It's the kind of the opposite of the Bitcoin price. But in the same way, you just refresh it every day. And no matter what you do, no matter what anyone else does, it just seems to go up. But we're trying to stop it ourselves. We're staying home. I'm celebrating about a month inside here. Really maybe even a month and a half. If you count that in the last month and a half, I've only gone out 3 times, Costco, grocery store, a couple of times, make sure the dog's all right. But yeah, I mean, it's essentials. You only go out for the essentials, you stay safe. And then from now on, since the major break 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's only wear mask, only wear gloves, only wear all the crazy shit you got. If you got to go.
How are your Prime slots? Have they been drastically reduced? There's no Amazon Prime Now slots for days.
A couple, yeah. Early on in the crisis, I wanted more snacks and stuff. I was like, I'm going to get another load of food. And I filled out the app, and they have a great way of wasting your time. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's not a time waste. Maybe it makes you feel good. But you get to order everything. So you're like, oh, I want this, and oh, I want that. And it all seems like it's in stock, and everything's going fine. And then you get to the end when it's time to check out, and that's when you find out, there's no slots for the next 3 days. At least the last time I checked, the Prime Fresh system didn't have a very good long-term reservation system. They just had a short-term one. You might be able to get Instacart, or you might be able to get your local grocery store. They have a lot of programs where they'll shop for you, and then they'll just bring it out to your car. That's what I would suggest, especially if you're older, and especially if you don't want to go inside the store, which is the place where everyone else is going now. So, and of course wearing masks and everything like that, because you should stay home and you should wear a effing mask, right? It's time. It's getting tighter and tighter out there. People are finally getting into this mask thing. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks here, but here it is in Wired magazine just yesterday. It's time to face facts, America. Masks work. Official advice has been confusing, but the science isn't hard to grok. Everyone should cover up. And we don't have, and they quote the classic, during the 1918 influenza pandemic, all Americans were wearing masks. Newspapers published instructions for sewing masks at home. Make any kind of mask and use it immediately and at all times, the Boston Health Commissioner pleaded. Even a handkerchief held over the face is better than nothing. This is 1918. That's more than 100 years ago. So America forgot. Here's a picture right here, 1918, protective gauze mask, face mask worn by Seattle police, 1918, during the influenza crisis. So in case you forgot, in case you don't know your history, here it is as a close-up of the picture. Again, how did I manage to have the time to Photoshop all those masks? Gosh, what an exotic fake. But anyway, we need to start wearing masks, and because of that, you can see right here, I put a mask on my Mad Bitcoins avatar. I thought it'd be a good idea. And you see Chuck made a better edited version of the mask. I had kind of a template that I put out. He made a better template. So you can check out our better template. And if I scroll back just a little bit more, we can check out all the people that I've masked. Check out Ron here. He had a diagonal face that took advanced photoshopping skills. So he had to go sideways. David right here. This is how we win coronavirus. We wear masks. We got David Silber, famous lawyer, right here, ready to go. Textfiles.com. This guy's a hero of mine. He downloads computer disks and he backs up things for the Internet Archive. He backed up all the text files that used to be on the BBSs back in the BBS days. Did a documentary about BBSs. He said he hasn't changed his profile pic, but he said that I managed to make his profile pic weirder. So that was pretty good. So I got a personal response. Psychedelic El Barto, he thanked me. Says it's looking good. Got to correct him. This guy's Stone Kettle. He's a hardcore, kind of a left-wing, well, not even left-wing, I'd say. He's a military guy. So he's a sensible fellow. And he's
military man.
Yeah, he's well about kind of ranting and stuff, but he's so right on. We've read it before. Here's old Gavin Newsom, governor of California, used to be mayor of San Francisco. And Richard Painter. This guy's a classic former U.S. attorney. He's on TV all the time.
Would Bain need to wear an N95 over his
Bain's
apparatus?
First, we'd have to know how Bain's crazy thing worked. I actually looked at a picture of it today. I was considering that as an option for my Mad Bitcoins mask, but I thought it would be too much and distracting. I wanted to be like direct and on topic here, where I'm just saying, wear this mask, like put a mask on your profile. And it's really strange if you look down here, it's already started to work. Like right here, Angus Johnson doesn't have a mask. I have a mask. You can see that my profile is protected, whereas his profile is not protected.
He's going to get coronavirus without the mask on his Twitter profile.
I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, and he said
insane.
what they call what he's doing right here is they call it
how it spread.
Raw breathing. He's a raw breather. He just breathes the raw air. And it's not safe to be a raw breather anymore. Like, if you're a raw breather, you're just taking what you're getting. And you want to be a little more filtered, right? You want to have an option. So here it is. Yeah, there's a Mad Bitcoins mask. And
that's a very nice one.
Yeah, so a little bit. Get this
I'm
going.
going to put mine on. Maybe not now, but I'll definitely.
Yeah. And we got time. We can Photoshop a lot more. If you're not good at Photoshop, send me your picture. Maybe I or someone else will come along who can help you put a mask on there. And eventually, I'm sure someone who knows how to write a little web program can make one of those maskify my profiles, like a Facebook one and a Twitter one. And it's not very,
or like a live filter, like the live filters where you can put people like.
Oh yeah, live filter would be great for Snapchat and Facebook and all these other things, so that when people do their Zoom chats and whatever, they could be, and it would be great because I mean a normal mask would actually mask my sound, but if I had a virtual mask, I mean it wouldn't work with my face behind a microphone. But virtual masks, this kind of mask awareness, the government, the people, the WHO, they're not going to do it for us. For reasons I can't understand, America is willing to die instead of wearing masks. We'll get to it later today. Donald Trump was asked point blank yesterday whether we should wear masks. He is definitely wavering on it. He was considering it. He was discussing it, in his way. And then at the end, he shifted back and he was like, well, you can't wear them for very long. I mean, American society can't be wearing masks. And what Brian Williams thought later on television is he thought that Trump was imagining the optics of all the Americans wearing masks, and he didn't like it. Because it is kind of a big failure to say that after 2020, because of horrible failures in pandemic prevention and awareness and incredible successes of coronavirus, we started wearing masks pretty much permanently whenever we go outside. Like, that's a bummer, right? To have that happen on your watch. But still, what's
But-
worse?
but
What's
it's-
worse, that
it-
or another 198,000 dead? I mean, let's wear the mask.
It is everyone's watch though. Like everyone's going through the same thing. So there's very few
Well,
countries that have got it under control, right? I mean, you look at,
Well, I don't have the
Italy's
chart
quite a
right here, but
sensible
if you look
country.
at South Korea, Hong Kong, like the countries that wear masks have it under
Oh,
control.
100%. Yeah, I'm saying
So, I
masks
mean,
are 100.
It
100
seems
million.
like
Yeah.
it seems like just, you know, as a layman coming into this with no information at all, and you tell me the countries that are wearing masks have it under control, and that it spreads through your mouth and through your nose, so that if you put something over your mouth and your nose when you go outside, you would spread it less and you would get it less. Like, just as a space alien, like, take me to your leader, like, and how much do these incredible masks cost? You know, like $1 a piece, less, $0.25 a piece, and the surgical ones work pretty good, and the homemade ones work pretty good, and a T-shirt around your face works pretty good, and we're not doing this because the optics, because it looks bad, because it looks like a bunch of bank robbers, because like people
But
start
also
acting like maniacs as soon as you put a mask on. Like, look at me right here. I used to be like a nice, kind Twitter person. I put on the mask. I started attacking corporations and making fun of their consumerism, like, because I felt emboldened with the mask, right?
But I think the resistance though surely has come more from the fact that the WHO have even said, you know, not the band, of course, but which are good live, especially at Glasgow. But the WHO has said that you know, they've advised against masks. I mean, there you have what is meant to be the biggest, you know, or at least the most organized World Health Organization, because, you know, you'd imagine that they'd be kind of, you know, they'd get their stuff together and know you know, what advice to give, and they're the ones telling people not to wear masks. So it's not just a case of you know, a specific person not saying, right, everyone has to wear masks, or saying, oh, you know, we'll look dodgy. It's advice that's being given, and people are therefore going, oh no, I don't need to wear a mask, it's worse for me. Like,
it's stunning, and we don't know why. I think later on we're going to find out that they thought that there'd be a shortage of masks, that there was a belief that if we give everyone an N95 mask, or tell them that it would be a good idea to have an N95 mask, that maybe they'll hoard them and the hospitals won't get them.
Well, that happened anyway. That
happened anyway, right? I mean, we're already there.
Yeah.
Like, we're already at the point where hospitals are begging people, like, let's say,
steal them.
Well, no, I don't think that's happening. There's no evidence of that. So I wouldn't repeat something that's false and has no evidence, because that's how propaganda works. What I would say,
hang on a second.
No, I wouldn't.
It was an article on
well,
it was
no,
an article
ABC,
we
have this like
a
propagandist out there spreading
adversary,
false information that there's hospitals selling masks. So no, what I would say is everyone that's been stockpiling masks.
I said that people are stealing supplies. That actually happened in my local Southampton University Hospital. They stopped people, like, you know, they basically put them on
that
guard.
Could be true.
People were stealing.
People could be robbing the hospitals, and again, that's a better way of looking at it. Well, no, but we have this problem out there. Some people say we have this problem. Some presidents like to say things that aren't true and say, I heard it from some guy. And what they're doing is they're projecting a negative image on a group of people. Unfortunately, today's group of people happen to be the same people who are saving people's lives and dying for this shit. So it's not really a good time to project a negative image on them. Even this guy wrote me on Twitter. He's like, no, you're not seeing it. It could be the janitors. And I'm like, the janitors are actually risking their lives too. They showed a video of everybody clapping for a janitor, and she's wearing her mask and her full gloves and her full scrubs, and she's a janitor in a hospital. Like, her job, like, it's gone from suck to blow, you know? And it's not a time to say they've been stealing this shit and selling it out the back door. Now, if other people are, I know, you said they're robbing the hospital. If people are robbing the hospital, let's get security and let's beat the shit out of those people. Like, could you imagine robbing a hospital for protective gear? Like, what a piece of shit you must be. Like,
yeah, sadly, there's loads of people out there.
And I mean, you know, other people are out stealing Van Gogh paintings from weak Dutch museums, and there's all kinds of like fun going on out there in the world. Like, there's this great idea where they said, hey, in San Francisco, when they closed everything down, they're like, criminals, please stop robbing. Like, the police are going to be busy helping people. Please don't steal anything. And that was it. That was the attempt. And then you saw, like, sadly, video after video of people looting, drugstores and stuff. They just like walked in and they start like putting things in their bag, and the workers walk around them and they're like, please don't do that. Please don't steal our stuff. Please, this is for everybody. And then the people feel bad and then they walk out with like a bag of stuff. But yeah, the cops, they put everything to the lowest level. So CVS being robbed isn't a send an officer, thing anymore. It's just CVS in San Francisco is being robbed. So locking up the doors and serving it a different way might not be such a bad idea these days. So, but that's pretty much the end of like browsing and consumerism and all the potential for money. I mean, you can't get anyone to buy anything at the checkout stand if there's no checkout stand, right? If they're outside, like ordering from a list, it kind of destroys the whole shopping thing, right? And when you think about the inside of places, like, do you really want to go inside a smaller box with other people after this disease thing? Like maybe 5 years from now, you'll be like, oh, smaller boxes are okay. But even then, it's like
there'll be a rise in AR, because I was looking at like the new iPad, and you can literally like press a button or whatever, and then it appears in front of you, and you can inspect this. You can inspect it from all the angles like that. It's really cool. So I can imagine there's going to be a big kind of improvement in how we're able to view stuff online, how, virtual galleries of things, like a, virtual shop that you can go through. I think it also has the LiDAR. Is it LiDAR? The depth scanning.
It does.
So you'd be able to scan yourself.
The new iPad has LiDAR, just like a Navy submarine. Like, it's amazing. But yeah, it does. It does indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could like LiDAR yourself and then try on clothes so that you don't have to, go dragging yourself around. So I think that's going to spurn a lot of cool innovation that it's going to accelerate it, at least. So that's kind of one positive out of all this, is that we're becoming resourceful with being able to operate from a distance and with all these obstacles in the way.
Everybody's doing Zoom chats and remote learning. Got it all going on. Let's see what else is going on in the news today. Oh, everyone should like this show. We've got 15 people who like this show. Thanks so much for your support. Got 42 watching now, so less than half. Let's try to get that up to half. Free. And like all the other YouTube videos you watch, even the ones that don't ask. Coronavirus cases in the United States as of yesterday, around 105,000 infected, 2,600 dead. Big refresh. 174,000 infected, 3,400 dead. So here we are, about to the 180 number that we predicted we'd reach about 3 or 4 days ago. We've doubled. We're doubling every 2 to 3 days. If you map this up, 350, 700, 1 million, not far off. That's 1, 2, 3 doubles away. So 3 doubles. Could be 9 days, could be 12 days, could be sooner. So 9 to 12 days, about a week, over 1 million. This is the enemy.
Yeah, Italy's just posted numbers, and they're pretty high. It's like 837. So they seem to be coming down slightly, but they're saying that the curve's flattening a bit, but there's a big delay in cases coming through in terms of deaths, I think. So there was care homes, for example, where some care homes deaths weren't being reported, so they're kind of outside of the stats. And the UK has also got a bit of a lag in stats because of the Data Protection Act, I think, or something. They've got to consent. So every time they release stats, they have to consent now, the family. So there is a bit of a delay, and sadly.
Well, this is another thing to work on for next time. This time in the coronavirus, nobody believed the China numbers. Nobody believes the Japan numbers because of the Olympic necessity of saying that nothing was happening so they could have the Olympics. The USA numbers might not be right. Now you're saying the UK numbers might not be reported correctly, at least not for a while. And a lot of this can be fixed for next time. We'll just have reporting standards. We'll just have independent monitors. We'll just have a whole Jimmy Carter system to monitor these countries for pandemic awareness. Independent doctors from multiple countries working together, monitoring this, and then reporting it to an open system. Maybe we'll put it on a blockchain, right? Why not? I don't care. We could put it in a database that'll work just as well. But yeah, we just need better information. We need better data. We're not getting it. CoinDesk writes, Bitcoin, stablecoins, DeFi, and privacy. How COVID-19 is changing key crypto narratives. And that's right. COVID-19 is changing everything. Oh, but they didn't bother writing about it. It's a podcast. So I guess you could check that podcast out on CoinDesk Podcasts. Some guy wearing a leather jacket. He looks rough. So there you go. That's what things are coming to. The law is coming for Bitcoin, warns Satoshi claimant Craig Wright. The man who claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto but provides no proof has gotten down to the point of writing on his personal blog. In the mad rantings of this alleged con man, he says that Lightning Network operators who receive stolen Bitcoin could be responsible. Basically, he's trying to take a legal argument against the Lightning Network. He says that in the United Kingdom system, that if you transfer stolen property, you're responsible. If a person handles stolen goods, knowing or believing them to be stolen goods, or dishonestly undertakes them. So it actually, I think you have to know that they're stolen goods. So what Preston Burns said is that if they did have a blacklist, it would be a problem. So even what Wright's saying here doesn't line up with the law. You have to knowingly or believing them to be stolen goods. You have to receive them dishonestly to be responsible. So if you just use the Lightning Network now, it's not a problem. This thing that Wright's making up. However,
I think that's
as Preston Burns says, if they made a blacklist of the coins and publicized the blacklist, presumably you'd have to hear about it, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're in the UK, you would then, once there's a blacklist, you could be held responsible. So I agree with Preston Byrne. I don't agree with what Craig Wright's saying. And also, I think it's great.
As far as I'm aware, though,
legal system. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, I was just going to say that although you may not be legally liable for the stolen goods, I'm pretty sure they still do get confiscated. So like this, it used to be the same with cars. You know, you may not have been anything to do with it, but unfortunately, that property is no longer yours, sadly. But yeah, it does beg to ask the question. You know, going back to how many hops does a Bitcoin address need to go before it becomes Bitcoin amount? Need to go before it becomes clean? I mean, you know, could it time based? These are really difficult questions, and eventually, in theory, all Bitcoin will probably end up being tainted in some way. You know, the way everything's kind of fractionalized. So, you know, you can't have a Bitcoin tainted forever. You've got to be able to have some sort of, you know, if they're going to be putting in restrictions on exchanges, for example.
Well, I think they do want a Bitcoin tainted forever. They want them tainted forever. And I think a great shortcut to what Preston Byrne is saying would be for the UK to just publish the list of all Bitcoins. That would be a pretty simple shortcut towards taking this down. Then you just say if the Lightning Network ever uses stolen Bitcoins, that you said they're stolen and now you're liable. So, which we could fix with software, but we won't. But someone else will. And yeah, they'll have a special software that won't accept, well, you can't not accept something. So I don't know what you're going to do there. Somebody sends you dirty Bitcoins. Your wallet's now dirty. But I guess they'll have some kind of a program that could go through your wallet and not send the dirty ones, or send all the dirty ones to a separate address. And it would like collect all of your dirty Satoshis, and you'd have your clean Satoshis and your dirty Satoshis. It's not a great thing, but I never thought there'd be ads on YouTube that were unblockable. I always thought people would figure out to block them. And then on the other side, I definitely saw ad blockers coming. I wondered for a long time why they were letting us view their web pages without, fighting the modifications. And even now, I think there could be ad blockers, which I haven't seen. They could get really aggressive and just rip the data from them and share it. But they're not doing it yet. But if there's enough money in it, someone will do it. And if there's a legal reason to have it, someone could write this blacklist, and then someone could actively enforce this blacklist. So that was pretty interesting Bitcoin story there. Back on topic. Thanks, Craig Wright, for writing about Bitcoin and trying to take it down with the legal system in the middle of a pandemic. Because I'm sure the British legal system's like, if only we had someone else to sue right now. Like, we're not busy at all. Like, if only we had some kind of nonsense, esoteric legal issue involving Bitcoin and that Australian guy. If only we had that. So, yeah, he's down to writing on his blog. Next, it's going to be text messages from Craig Wright, angry tweets from the man who claims to be Satoshi. Of course, I guess angry tweets get you pretty far these days. Don't give him that idea. Don't tell him about the tweets. A major story happened overnight. I guess people care. Bitcoin and crypto world rocked by an estimated $400 million Binance bid for coin market cap. And I don't know if it's a bid. I heard they bought them. I heard it's done. As it says here, the deal said to be in its final stages. Looks set to see Malta, but not really Malta-based Binance, pay as much as $400 million for coin market cap, the webpage where people look at the price of Bitcoin and altcoins. Obviously, Binance is going to control CoinMarketCap, the webpage where people look at Bitcoins and altcoins. What do you think, Dan? First thought, right off the top, what do you think?
So right at the top, I mean, the valuation of 400 million is obviously a lot. But if you think about the fact that CoinMarketCap is just a page of information with APIs, probably, I'm not saying it's all automated, but it's probably quite an autonomous system once you've got stuff up. It's more about maintaining data around it. But they are, I think, as of this morning, 570 rank in the world viewed sites. So they're racking up some massive traffic, and yeah, they've become a resource that's kind of wildly, if the crowd wants it for every coin, it's like, get it on CoinMarketCap. It's like almost like it's like the index, really. It's like, you could call it like the NASDAQ almost, even though it's not where they're traded. It's like the index of where we see all these cryptocurrencies, and it's a standard to be on them. Coins aren't considered legitimate if they're not on there. If obviously they're not legitimate to any Bitcoiner anyway. But and there was definitely a lot of control around how that data was not used, but like how the volumes are reported. They did clean up their act in terms of trying to make sure, not clean up their act, but make sure that the information that they were getting was correct. They've done a lot of steps around kind of how they analyze the volume compared to the actual market cap to try and weed out. So I think they've generally, I know they got taken over a while back, like a year or two ago or something like that. I don't think it's good that a Binance owned them, to be fair. I think if anything, CoinMarketCap should have gone into a kind of .org and become the unbiased information hotspot. But it's now gone to Binance, and there's a lot of risks involved, I think, with to the community. That they could end up being hoodwinked, like the equivalent of say Google. Google, for example, putting their stuff at the top of the ads. There'll be Binance favoring their stuff, and although it's free market, whether it's good for the crypto community.
No, it's not good. I think Dan's hitting all the right points here. It's about traffic and eyeballs. Binance, it's a good deal if Binance just puts their own banner ads all over the site. If every coin you look at has a button that says, buy this coin at Binance. Just that right there. That little bit of integration, it's a good deal. It's a smart idea. Second level, you talked about access. New coins want to get on CoinMarketCap. Now you have to get on Binance. It becomes just an advertisement for their coins. Coins that they think are acceptable are now automatically added on CoinMarketCap. Other exchanges that might want to take a risk on some crazy coin, probably not going to be added to CoinMarketCap unless you're on Binance. It's a gatekeeper. It's a wall. You get to control the competition. You get more kickbacks. You get more everything. It's fantastic. And the third thing you said as well, you can monkey with it. You can mess with the volumes. You can misreport it. You can report some coins good, other coins badly. You can report it quickly or slowly. You can slow down parts of it. You could have some kind of a bug that causes some coin that you're advertising to go to the top. And the next day, you could say it was a bug, and they put the plus instead of the minus. It's fantastic. Like, CoinMarketCap's not a journalism site. They don't have any credo or code or anything. They're just a list purporting to be an accurate list. And, of course, If they lose accuracy, eventually their reputation will go down. But Dan said they're top 500 sites in the world or something, so they're already in the driving place. We've talked about other sites that listed it by the market cap of the coin or had a different listing or listed it in Bitcoin or Satoshi or whatever. Those are all now minor competitions to this main endorsed site. They're going to be on all the conference names, all the sponsorships, it's another way for Binance to advertise themselves now. You can advertise CoinMarketCap instead. It's like a subterranean, it's a secret advertisement for Binance. So once again, just like the Tron thing, if you're bold and you're audacious and you do it bigger and better than anybody, you can acquire the kind of resources to pull off this kind of move. I don't know if $400 million is too much, but I know for all those reasons, they just got a driving place in people's minds. They just got
information is the new gold.
Yes, they did. And they bought a big piece of information today. Now, obviously, the hardcore people are all deleting their links to CoinMarketCap, and they're going to go to another source and get other information. But the problem is, the other side of this is what Tron's doing. What Binance is doing is hiring competent people and hiring lots of them and paying them to work on the site. If they hire a certain number of coders, if they hire a certain number of information people and they update the heck out of it, it's going to be good information. You're going to have to go there. Then every once in a while, they can sneak one through. Then every once in a while, they can deny a coin access. Then every once in a while, it's a long-term play. It's beautiful. Obviously, if they did a separate thing, like CoinDesk for a little while was previously separate. They were in a different office. They had different people, but they moved them back into the house recently. And I'm sure Binance, they don't even have a house. It's all decentralized, distributed. I don't know if they'll put them under the org chart or integrate them in, but yeah, it's a great move. It's a smart move. Also shows they have $400 million lying around. Let's also look for a minute here, Dan. Let's put our thinking caps on. Who didn't buy CoinMarketCap? Well, Coinbase didn't buy CoinMarketCap, and Kraken didn't buy CoinMarketCap. Kraken's been buying a lot of things and a lot of people lately. Gemini, big fancy thing. And again, they also get access to the back end of this. They can scan everybody's IP address. They can tell where you're coming from. Maybe you come from some fancy laboratory or the White House or whatever, and you're going to CoinMarketCap 100 times a day, and now I know. And maybe you're refreshing, Alpha Coin, Jabbercoin, whatever.
And
now
if you're using if you're using portfolio tools as well, they know how much you've got.
Yeah.
They know your bags. It's kind of like the thing that the Blockfolio was under fire for a while back, is that I'm not sure if the privacy rules changed, but that data was freely flowing, and that's probably the reason why Earn.com, which used to be 21.co, I think that coincidentally that sold for 400 million to Coinbase. Yeah, but again, the main thing about that was that system was that they'd built up this massive data from execs to shitcoin, runners to ICO hodlers, and they were able, with all this information, to then start doing really tailored kind of deals and really tailored marketing. So that information did prove as gold for Coinbase.
I believe, they brought that one for the marketing, but they also bought that to get Balaji. They wanted the brains. They wanted that big startup guy who's now leading us in coronavirus. I don't know that he still works at Coinbase or not, but for a while he was a vice president or whatever. So they got his ear. They got the ability to consult with him. And they probably also got all the people he hired at Earn.com, probably a bunch of good people. They got whatever was left of 21.co, the idea to put a Bitcoin miner in your toaster. They actually made a hardware miner before they became Earn.com, the people who will pay you for email, which then Coinbase completely killed. It was like one of these classic AOL, Yahoo, Google acquisitions, Microsoft, where they kill the thing that you love and replace it with nothing. So, but again, they just wanted the brains. It was a zombie operation, right? But yeah, really big news today, $400 million CoinMarketCap being sold to Binance. Let us know what you guys think in the chat. Let's check it out. AR Forsgren. I say names wrong. They need to be spelled, phonetically or something. He says it's a $4 million data mine. Sounds like a deal. 400 million. But yes, still a good deal. Chester Copperpot says Binance is the central bank of crypto. That's interesting. It's kind of distributed, though. It's kind of, maybe it's the bank we deserve. I don't know. Coinbase still seems like the central bank. But let's see. Richie Rich says Bittrex is pushing their referral program. Poloniex is adjusting some pump machine. And Binance is shilling RefLinks and doing anything they can do to grow. So it does sound like a pretty desperate and wild market out there in the crypto exchanges. Norm asks if there's regulation. No, you can definitely buy anything you want. Like if already Barry Silbert's digital currency group bought CoinDesk, which previously was the major publication of the space, does whatever he wants with it. There's another media company that owns a lot of the Bitcoin media. It's called Bitcoin Media. And, they bought Let's Talk Bitcoin. They bought Bitcoin Magazine. They own Y Combinator Magazine. And once again, all of these things are probably really cheap. If you really thought about it, Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, you could roll into one of these things, $500,000, million, probably less, buy the whole thing, own the whole thing, and make it say whatever you want. So somebody already did that with one of the classic Bitcoin news websites. It was an independent operation run by one person, and one day they came along and they bought it all. So it happens. It definitely is a thing that's happening and a thing to keep an eye on for this information. But yeah, it would be great if somebody bought all these things and put them together and made something good. But it's much more likely they'll slight it to themselves, right?
There's so looking at the stats, so just a little update. So five on according to Alexa.com, so coinmarketcap.com is ranked 570. So the nearest kind of competitors they've got are like CoinGecko, which is 7,304, CoinCodex rank 21,000. There's also Crypto Compare, so one started in the UK. Good team they are there. They're 13,000. So CoinMarketCap really is by a long stretch the winner there. And actually, looking interestingly, Binance isn't ranked too badly itself. It's Bitcoin Talk is ranked at 17,500.
I was going to say buying Bitcoin Talk would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, let's really think about this here. Binance, Tron, some of these other players, for whatever reason, they sold all these tokens, they printed all this money, all these suckers bought it, and now these companies are running gigantic portfolios. They can buy Tron bought BitTorrent. Obviously, they didn't get Bram Cohen. They didn't get the guy who invented BitTorrent, but they got the company. They got the brand, right? They technically own it. You could buy anything. I don't know. They could buy the old Batman TV show, and then they could make all of Binance's advertising about the old Batman TV show. Pow, bam, zoom, Binance. I don't know. You could buy anything. They could buy Spider-Man. Eventually, it's going to get, if it continues at this rate, we're already talking about Apple maybe buying Disney. People really want to see that. People have wanted to see Apple buy Netflix for a while now. If you're talking about Netflix, not just the movie streaming, but the content studios, Netflix being a television and movie producing factory now, Amazon buying Netflix, Apple buying, Amazon can't. Amazon and Apple would be the ultimate merger. But yeah, all these things. Let's get some vertical integration going here. Norm says railroads and oil companies. That's right. Here we go. Richie Rich is catching on. Binance needs to buy the Lakers. Now we're talking. Yeah. Did you hear this story about the Lakers? Now we can talk. We can distract you for a minute with sports news. Well, obviously the Clippers. You know that Ballmer, Steve Ballmer, Microsoft, developers. He owns the Clippers. So he now wants to build a $1 billion brand new stadium for the Clippers. Of course, right? He's got the money. So the problem is there's this thing called the Forum in LA. It's an old stadium where the Lakers actually used to play, right? The Forum doesn't want there to be another stadium in Los Angeles because, they own Los Angeles, right? Or they own the neighborhood they're in. So Ballmer just bought the Forum and to run it as a music venue so that he could clear the way to build his $1 billion stadium for the Clippers. So the Clippers just bought the place where the Lakers used to play, where they won all their titles, their classic stadium, just because to clear it as a roadblock. They don't need it. What they need is for the Forum not to sue them, because the Forum suing them waste all their time. So instead of paying lawyers and getting sued, they bought a stadium that they don't want, don't need, aren't even going to tear down. They're just going to run it for concerts or whatever it does now. Isn't that the best? Isn't that the best story? I don't know. I just thought
that was like when Bruce Wayne bought the restaurant because he wanted an extra seat on the end of the table.
There you go.
Kind of like that.
Exactly. Yeah. You just roll in, buy the place. Like that's the kind of wealth that Ballmer has. I agree with Towers Comics. He says, weren't the Lakers from Minnesota? There's a great movie called Basketball by the South Park guys. Most people don't know it, but it was out there in their first couple of years. And in basketball, they talks about how all the teams are moving and how they keep moving. And he's like, the New Orleans Jazz moved to Utah where they don't allow music. The Minnesota Lakers moved to Los Angeles where there are no lakes. That was pretty great. So, but yeah, I agree with the Mad Egyptian. The Lakers play at the Staples Center now, but they used to play at the Forum. So the Lakers are going to stay at the Staples Center. The Clippers don't like sharing the Staples Center with the Lakers. And I can see why. Like they're the little brother team. They have to cover up their banners and stuff. Like they changed the stadium a little bit, but it's still the same place the Lakers play. Like 2 nights ago, the Lakers play. So Rad Vladdy's seen Basketball. All right. Basketball is so good. Has so many sports, like celebrities, Al Michaels and all these other commentators. And they all say the most ridiculous things. Like there's no way they could do it now. There's so many like disgusting off-color jokes that these guys make in character as announcers. They'd hang them now. Like I don't want to tell people because they're going to go back and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, Al Michaels said this once in a movie, and they're going to have to take the show off the air or something. So don't tell everybody about basketball, but just tell some people. I agree with Towers' comments. It's satire. People are so dumb. They don't know about satire anymore. So poor Al Michaels and that crew, they got him to say a bunch of ridiculous. I think the best line Al Michaels says, he says like, it's hard to imagine that only 5 years ago, those girls were in grade school. It's like, oh, no.
Oh, savage.
Oh, no, poor Al Michaels. He's in so much trouble. But again, it's a joke. It's a movie. It's a comedy. Let's not get upset. But, go watch Basketball. It's fun.
You don't want to upset the internet mob, man. It's a crazy world out there. Like, I think it's difficult, I'm really bad, like when it comes to people like ripping on me, like on the internet. So I try and tread really carefully, and I think I kind of do okay, like avoiding getting bashing too much. But some of the stuff people say, it must be awful, from whatever side of the fence you're on, whether you're left, right, or whatever. The shit the shit that people sling is just awful. And imagine just having to sit there and read through some of the stuff. Like some of it's funny, like when was it Richard Dawkins? He read like his hate mail, and he's like, "Dear monkey fuck man," it's like, I hope you burn in hell for eternity forever. If you can't see the funny side of it, you're gonna end up pretty warped.
It's interesting you'd mention that because the last couple of days I watched the Clint Eastwood movie Richard Jewell, and that's all about the security guard at the Olympic Stadium in 1996 or something. They had the Olympics in Atlanta, and he's there being a security guard, walking around doing his thing, and he sees this strange bag, and he just wants to do a good job. He reports the bag. They rally around, they check it. Holy shit, it's a bomb in a bag. They space everybody out. They save some lives. The bomb goes off anyway. Super scary, like awful thing that happened. But for a couple of days there, Richard Jewell is an international hero. And everyone's like, oh, he's the best. And, he's kind of weird, but he's the best. And they interview him, and he seems a little slow, but he's a good guy, right? Then about 3 days later, the press puts a report out that the FBI is looking at Richard Jewell. Now, this is a natural thing. There's nothing wrong that the FBI did in the first place of looking at him. You have to look at everyone involved. Like, it only makes sense. Like, the guy had a kind of a questionable background. He lost a couple jobs. He's kind of a wild cannon. You just don't know. So they're looking at him. But the way the press did it, they started reporting on it, and they started reporting on it every day, 24 hours a day for 4 weeks. And they ruined the guy's life, and they ruined his mother's life, and they followed him around. Same time, the FBI are following him around as well, right? I mean, everybody's after this guy. And as it turns out, he did nothing. He's a bit of a weirdo. He saw the bomb, he reported the bomb, and he did nothing. Powerful movie. Really hammers it home how the press could just go after him for nothing. And this was before the internet. This was just,
What film was that called? Sorry.
It's called Richard Jewell. And it's just the guy's name. It's Clint Eastwood. Came out just last year. I don't think it did very well at the box office, but people should check it out. It was very good movie. So, but let's keep going with the Bitcoin news. Bitcoin enters its most bullish yearly quarter. Will it deliver? And this is again the idea that you can predict the future by looking at the past. In the past, Bitcoin had really good second quarters. But as we all know, this is the coronavirus world now. It doesn't matter what the past is. Like, it's a fun and a clever idea. Let's look at the old charts and let's pretend that it's going to happen. But no, whatever's going to happen is not going to be determined by the past. Meanwhile, we keep talking about this, but we're not really into it. Bitcoin enthusiasts, liberal lawmakers cheer a Fed-backed digital dollar. I don't think that means that it's happening, but it sounds like they wanted a faster way to distribute the money for the coronavirus crisis. As they're saying here, 1 out of 14 households in America have no bank account. I think they thought that it might be easier to distribute a digital dollar than to help these people get bank accounts, or to have another system, or to send them, I don't know, checks that they go to the check cashing place. I don't know how you cash a check without a bank account.
I'm surprised Mark Zuckerberg didn't come in with a.
Oh, I know. He could have been there. Yeah. Libra. They could have just given them a Libra account. Everyone has a Facebook account. Why not just use a digital Libra account? So, yeah, this seemed like a ridiculous idea the whole time they were talking about. I know CoinDesk wrote like a dozen articles about this, and I kept not retweeting them because I kept saying, this is the middle of a crisis. Let's not launch a hastily assembled, poorly made digital dollar in the middle of a crisis. Like, you know what happens next. There's a crisis with your poorly made, hastily assembled digital dollar. Somebody figured out how to steal them all. Somebody figured out how to block them. Somebody figured out how to just grief the whole system. And now it doesn't work. I mean, let's not waste our time. Let's just print checks. And that's what they did. They printed checks. Hey, we made it back to the show. 24 hours ago, we were fired up. We wanted to nationalize Medtronic, and we ranted and we raved. People need more ventilators. It was bullshit that Covidin bought Medtronic just to run their small, light, cheap ventilator program. Out of business. It's not right. Hey, it's Nevada. That's where I live. A state in one of the richest countries in the world has painted social distancing boxes on a concrete parking lot for the homeless to sleep in. So you can stay 6 feet away from your fellow homeless. This picture got a lot of negative press for Nevada in the last couple of days. I'm told that later on they did lay down blue mats for the homeless to sleep on. It's not so bad to sleep outside here. The temperatures are pretty warm, if you're thinking about it that way, but it is still pretty poor conditions. I guess they had to close the homeless shelter. Too many people packed in too tightly, and this was the best option they could come up with. So, of course, that's to say nothing about all those hotels, right? They could have put the homeless in one of the many empty casinos on the Strip, or one of the many empty hotels in the town. In fact, the city could have bought one of the empty, out-of-business hotels, put the homeless in there. But again, we don't want to treat the homeless too nice. They might assume that they deserve beds and they deserve a room and stuff. You know, you don't want to do that to people.
What about like say they did, buy a hotel or whatever, there's a not an unused one. They still run the risk of putting these people in a place where if the system's not good enough, if it's not a negative pressure one, positive pressure, whichever it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're in a way it's better than doing nothing, but it would, what extent would they have to go if they didn't want it spreading among the homeless community, but also didn't have the facilities there?
Well, it's the same for prison populations. Right now, we're still keeping people in prisons. Most of the courts are closed. So if you wanted to say, let's have an emergency exemption or something like that, the court can't do it because no one's working at the court. So we need to work out like a special deal where the court could come in and they could clear a bunch of people and then they could let them go. They've done some of this, but not enough of this. And again, it's the kind of thing that like right now we can talk about, but already Rikers Island in New York City, a famous prison, has a 75% infection rate. There's rumors of infections in the immigration concentration camps along the American border. No, I mean, we're going to lose all over the place. Like this is homeless care is just one of the many areas that we're losing in. It's just particularly a bad look for Nevada. It makes it look like they made people sleep in a parking lot because they made people sleep in a parking lot. So it's not a good look. Let's keep going. We're never going to get through the news at this point.
Just very quickly, though, on the Rikers Island thing, I haven't been able to find yet any news of if there are actually any deaths from Rikers Island, and so that's quite an interesting thing. That even though the 70% of people have got it, there's no reports of deaths yet. And if again we're looking at a situation where squalid conditions, well, not squalid conditions, but very cooped up conditions are likely and stuffiness will make things worse. Surely we'd see a bit more of we'd see a lot more talked about it. There'd be a mortality rate there to discuss, to say, hey, it's 5 out of 70. This is crazy, but we're not seeing that.
They're saying it's just about to hit. Let's see. The New York Times is making me log in. Because this is a good time for that. So the article I was reading just went away. Let's see. They say just Rikers inmates speak out as coronavirus cases spread. They say people it's spreading. They have officers walking around without masks. They've spared the jails. 103 inmates at New York City jails had the disease, most of them at Rikers Island. Let's see. Shortage of cleaning supplies and even soap necessary to stem the virus. Many sleep in crowded dorm-style housing units. De Blasio on Tuesday, the mayor of New York, announced 300 inmates would be released from Rikers to slow the disease's spread, but there are 5,000 people locked up in the jail complex. New York cannot leave people in jails behind to suffer and die, says the Legal Aid Society. They're not given any protection in terms of masks. Clients are ripping their clothing and tying it around their own faces for protection. When people are suspected to be sick, they aren't sanitizing or cleaning that person's bed. They're just taking that person out and putting someone else in their bed. As inmates become more infected, officials are looking for more quarantine space, maybe reopening parts of it, every tool available. Inmates, varying degrees of upheaval, maximum security problems, lockdowns, inmates locked in their cell. A sewer line burst and toilets overflowed. Feces and urine spewed across the floor, remaining there for multiple days. Jail inmates tried to slide meals under the cell doors, but the floors hadn't even been bleached. Roommates refused to eat. They've asked for disinfectant. They won't give us any of those things. So it sounds pretty terrible in the prisons. I'm not sure that we're seeing deaths or reports of deaths yet. The New York Times article did say 914 dead in New York City from a day ago, 38,000 infected. I think that's doubled. A day ago, we had 38 positive tests in New York City jails. Sounds like the other article said 100. 80 inmates and staff infected 7 days ago, Wall Street Journal. So yeah, it seems like it's really bad. It's the other kind of thing where you're not going to get numbers immediately because someone might not care to bother writing the numbers down. I mean, they're just so busy. So it sounds pretty rough in Rikers Island and soon to be in every prison around the world, right? All right, we did an hour. We got to start going through the news faster, Dan. There was a giant Trump press conference today. We're never going to get to the end of this. So let's see. Amazon, Instacart, delivery workers strike for coronavirus protection and pay. This only makes sense. If you're shopping now, you should be getting hazard pay and you should definitely be getting sick time. If you're shopping and you're sick, you're defeating the whole purpose. The grocery stores are now pretty much the new hospitals, the new front lines. We actually need people scanning temperatures and maybe not allowing the sick into grocery stores, maybe shopping for them. And in the same way with all these workers, they need protections. I hope they win their strike. Germany has testing spot on, according to Professor Carol Sikorka on Twitter. They plan to test hundreds of thousands for the presence of antibodies and issue immunity certificates to those who test positive for antibodies, allowing their work to be exempt from the lockdown. This information will be a huge weapon against the virus, and it's definitely coming. They're going to issue immunity certificates. So if you want to go to a movie, if you want to go on an airplane, if you want a job, I don't know. I think we're looking at a lot of immunity certificates in our future. Shout out to whoever created this Van Gogh with the mask hanging off. It just says fuck. Don't know if you guys know it. A Van Gogh in Netherlands was in kind of a smaller museum. It was a nicer Van Gogh. Thieves took advantage of the coronavirus to steal the Van Gogh. So, bummer. Trump's press conference. Here we go. We're getting close to it. I had a little quote from it. I said, "And my hair's blowing around, and it's mine." President Trump.
I did see that.
Yeah.
That's quite a cool. That's quite a cool quote, I think.
You can't make this up. It was, and I mean, I understand part of it. I have my own microphone. Like, I have my own show. Like, I'm right there with him. Like, there's points where you just say crazy things, and you're rolling around. You do a 3-hour radio show. You're gonna say something wrong or something. I mean, I read that Boris Johnson article completely wrong yesterday. I mean, we screw up all the time, right? We're just human beings. He's a human being too. But there's another part of it where this press conference today, and we're gonna play clips and we're gonna talk about it, and it was an amazing press conference. It was kind of like a variety show. It just had so many different little parts to it. It had all of these corporation guys, and they came in, and part of it is good. They're all making masks, and they're making ventilators, and I laud them, and I think it's great. Another part was not so great. They felt that it was a good idea to make a speech at this conference. Sorry, guys. Like, not a good press move. Like, you didn't make your brand look better. Like, you just kind of tied yourself to this strange road show. So, yeah, a lot of these weird brand guys came up. One of them, the My Pillow guy, comes up. Can't make this up. I wish I could. I was even casually watching. I was casually watching the press conference. I was like, playing a video game, reading on my laptop or something. And you hear out of the corner, you hear, America has gone off course and is not paying attention to prayer anymore. And, God's going to come back to America and all this stuff. And I was like, what? Like, did I switch the channel? Like, did I screw up? And then the president gets up after their speech and he's like, "That's my friend." That, which was a totally fair thing to say. So yeah, the My Pillow guy was there. This lady asks a crazy abortion question. Like, it's just very off topic. Just seems very out of place. I'm not sure that she. Let's try to get through this. It's just gonna take forever. There's so much good stuff. Like I said a minute ago, from my own, I did some live tweeting of it here, so we'll have some inaccurate, typed in the moment quotes here from Mad Bitcoin, but they're pretty close to accurate. They're intended to be accurate. Nation had turned its back on God, thanks to nation praying daily. And I said, seems like a random person just ran up and took the microphone. Not sure. Wild press conference. And after that, Trump tried to shake his hand, but he wouldn't shake it. These are crazy times. Like, can you imagine any other time where you wouldn't shake the president's hand? Even again, I'm not a fan. You show respect to the president. Like, the guy's the president, But yeah, it's disease time. You just don't want to shake even his hand. In the middle of all this, Trump said that Republicans would never be elected again if it was easier to vote, which is true. And we could talk about it more, that they're just statistically, just as a fact, there are more Democrats than Republicans. So if you made it really easy to vote and all the Democrats voted, the Republicans would never win. So that's why in all this gerrymandering, which means changing districts to make them unfair for the purpose of winning elections, all this generally is on the Republican side. All the poll taxes, all the ID requirements, anything that makes it harder to vote. And again, I'm sorry, this is just it's a statistical thing. There are just more of these people. So if you wanted to win, like they want to win, The only way to win is to have less of those people vote. So we're going to see a big push for national vote by mail soon. In case you don't know, voting by mail is the greatest democratic tool available to us. It increases turnout. No one has to wait in lines. There's no stupid voting machines to steal your vote. We have to worry about the tabulators. We need open source tabulators. We don't have it. But if we have vote by mail like they do in Oregon, the entire state, it's a card. It comes to your house. You have a couple weeks. You have lots of time. You can read about it. You can watch Fox News. You can watch all the things. And then you fill it out with a pencil and a paper, just like a Scantron. You know how to do it. You button it up, and then you use the existing mail system that's already used for thousands of confidential documents and other serious files and all kinds of stuff. And it would be a huge hassle to rig the whole thing, but it would be possible. You could do it if you want. And then you just send it back. That's it. That's how you vote. And they're going to have to do it because of this coronavirus thing. The choices are national vote by mail or no election. Right? So we never did no election before. Even in the Civil War, we had an election and we changed presidents, right? Always. Even in World War II, we had elections, we changed presidents, we figured it out. So, national vote by mail or no election. And again, if we get a taste, if the people get a taste of vote by mail, of how amazing it is, they're never going to want to stop. Like they're always.
Most American presidents been re-elected because, like, Obama served 2 terms, Bush served 2 terms. He served 2 terms, didn't he?
There's a pretty high percentage of re-elections.
Yeah,
it's definitely the president has the bully pulpit. They have the ability to speak. Yeah. They have the franking ability, the ability to send out free mail. The president has a lot of abilities. They can have news conferences, all kinds of things. It's the challenger has to unseat the champion, like no doubt. But we'll have to see. And again, if it's vote by mail, I don't know. I don't think that I agree with Trump here. Vote by mail does not help him. I would agree with that. Like Yamiche Alcindor said, Trump said his hair was blowing in the wind and it's mine. That's one thing you can't get away with if you're president. So he made
if it's factually, it looks factually true though. You can't get away from that if you're president, right?
Sure. But I agree with what she says that he just reiterated that his hair is real in the middle of the coronavirus briefing. Like it's just the thing that we're seeing here on display, and people are going to write about this for 100 years. He has no filter, right? There's certain kinds of people. There's something in their brain, right? It's a chemistry issue, and they don't have any filter. They just say whatever comes along. And we've never had a say whatever comes along guy as president before, especially not in modern times where they have a camera on everyone all the time, right? If this was just a news report, you could say, that's bullshit. Those newspaper guys just don't like Trump. They reported that he talked about his hair during the briefing, and that's a lie, right? No, he actually talked about his hair during the briefing. And the great thing yesterday, people were all upset that he talked about his ratings on Twitter. He doubled down. He talks about his ratings during the meeting. So it's no longer like a random tweet that the president's interested in his ratings while people are dying, right? That's the reality you have to have in your head. And he's so interested, he doesn't just tweet about it, he talks about it, and Fox News cuts away from it. But that was yesterday's conference. Let's try to get today's.
Do you not think it's like a bit of a not a self-fulfilling prophecy though? But he's, from across the pond, he's quite clearly the most media inflated person from both sides. There's the pump for him and the hatred against him and the evil and sexist monster and there's so if these other people didn't focus on all the other stuff and they focused on the ones that are very critical of everything and they focused on the coronavirus at hand, would Trump not need to, there wouldn't be a need for him to have to defend everything? Is that not, do you not think of it like that? Because he's under a lot of fire. So surely you're going to be thinking, well, I need to need to set the record straight about X, Y, and Z.
No, I think still for me the big period of history is going to be this 4 to 6 weeks that are missing. Like we can have all the time we want, and at the end of the day, it's going to be Oh, there was 4 to 6 weeks where he did nothing. Like, and we'll just look, you just put it on a chart. You're like, they'll make a chart later. It'll say number of gloves produced in America per week. And it'll show like 4 to 6 weeks of no activity. And then just like the other day, whoop, number of ventilators produced in America, daily. And we just put it on a chart. Whoop. We realized that we needed things too late. And that's going to be a problem of the person in charge. This is part of like being president. Like he said that he takes no responsibility, but everyone knows the buck stops there. So he's going to be held responsible, especially if he keeps not doing anything. I mean, we need things to change. We still don't have a nationwide stay-at-home order here. We have a state-by-state order, which means that the virus is going to spread around state by state. So, no, he's making all kinds of mistakes all over the place. And then the other part of it is it's really easy. There's another tweet, I don't know if I'll get to it here, where the guy said, he was like, why didn't Trump just say, I said that and I was wrong. And I've changed and I've moved on. Because if he said that, there'd be nothing else to talk about. It would be over. We'd be like, oh, he said it and he's wrong. It's time to move on. What he says is that he's right all the time. Like, everyone's all Trump derangement syndrome, all this stuff. Well, it's actually a propaganda technique. Half the people are completely bewitched. So those are the ones that are like, oh, it doesn't matter that he changed his mind and that he says different things each day and he changes the past. That doesn't matter. And that's exactly what Orwell wanted you to do. That's why the guy in 1984, he works in the Ministry of Truth, right? He works there editing articles. Why do they have him doing that? Because it works, right? Never in 1984 did they say what they were doing was ineffective, right? The whole book is about the effectiveness of these techniques. So yes, it works. Like the whole thing with the nurses and doctors stealing masks. Like he's repeating that to make nurses and doctors in New York City have a bad reputation as if they're mafia people. And a lot of people in the Midwest, that works. That hits the bell. They're like, mafia movies in New York, hospitals are stealing masks. Some people say, you don't need any evidence. Like this is all propaganda techniques. You could just read about this. And the more you read about it, the less chance of you being programmed, the more chance of you understanding when you see this. So no, he continues to make mistakes. Even yesterday, he was bragging about killing 200,000 people. Like I don't think there's a chance to just shrug the other shoulders on this. This is the one that we've been waiting for. We've been waiting 3 years for something out of his control to happen. All the mistakes they made in the first 3 years were all self-inflicted, right? They hired a bad person. It blew up in their face, right? They hired a good person. They turned out to be a bad person. They had all their ideas. They did it to themselves, right? But this one's an act of nature, right? This is like weather. And, a lot of people thought it was going to be a war, especially Syria and Russia and all this stuff that was going to put them in it. But no, it's this pandemic. This is the one. And you can wait. Fortunately, we have time. Like all the Trump supporters, we can wait. We can see how bad this thing gets, and then they can come back, right? And just like Trump, all they have to say is, I was wrong, I made a mistake, and we're fine with it. And the normal people, they might someday be capable of crossing that bridge. They might deprogram themselves enough. The reality might come to them. But he's never going to. He's never going to apologize. He's never going to take responsibility for this. And that's why it's going to continue. Because he's not taking responsibility. As Scott Dworkin said, now he's having the MyPillow guy speak. This is absurd. And it really is. Let's get to some videos. They said we needed Tom Brady. Here's this guy. He called it on March 27th. He said that Trump called Tom Brady. I'll bet that he has Kid Rock and the MyPillow guy leading a task force within a week. Ding! And that's the other thing about this. Not only was it predictable that the coronavirus was going to wreck us, it was predictable that they wouldn't be prepared, and it's still predictable. So it's like this guy calls it, says there's going to be a MyPillow guy. The train's on the course, right? The train's on the tracks. It's not going to stop. So the train just keeps going. Ali Velci was also shocked to see the MyPillow guy. He says, this is the newscaster. He says, you cannot make this stuff up. Again, just the shock.
Have you got the video of it?
Oh yeah, we're building.
The snippet.
This is all live. So This is how.
Because he was on like all the time when I was staying with yours when we were on our travels. He was like on every video. He's like the All American Pillow, and and he's like got his factories and stuff and his dream and everything. And so that's really odd seeing that guy, thinking about that guy, popping on the podium and being like, "Virus because God said he didn't like gays," or whatever that he probably said that's similar to that. Crazy stuff.
All right, so Shauna says, why are we showing these pressers live? There aren't even any doctors here today. This is just C-suite on parade, led by the MyPillow guy who's besties with Hannity, literally reading aloud an homage to Trump. And so, again, this is just real time from the Twitter. So the videos start to drift in, right? Everyone's like, clip it as fast as you can, upload it as fast. Like, fortunately, I didn't have to do it. These guys did it. But yeah, they're clipping as fast as they can. So it starts out with the hair. Let's check in with the president and his hair.
Hospital under construction, which is now
See how
completed.
serious this is?
They completed
Hospital,
it in 3 days.
hospital under
You might say
construction.
3.5 days. At
Serious.
the Javits Center will be completed today. And when you look, so they're going up. I think we're going to be adding some more beds, which will be completed today. And we've opened up. Whoops! There goes our box. And my hair's blowing around, and it's mine. The one thing you can't get away with, if it's not yours, you got a problem, if you're president. And nearly 3,000 medical beds will become...
It's like, I mean...
What's wrong with that? Come on, it's funny. Like, what?
It's funny.
What?
Like, there's 200,000 potential dead people in America. And he's telling personal
it's
jokes.
not like they're not doing anything.
Well, no, it's funny.
They've got more comprehensive reports than like than anything that I've seen with all the people. Their list coming up. It's so well organized from across the pond in terms of how that information's laid out. So, and because it's so extensive, the commentary, is it bad that like of the 2-3 hours that he's yabbering on, he says something funny about his hair that people like continuously harass on?
Yeah, yes, it is. There are dead people. Like, I mean, this is a goofball show, right? We're on YouTube. Like, we can tell some jokes, we can take some risks. It doesn't matter that much. We're goofballs on YouTube, right? People are dying. People lost their relatives yesterday. People like
I'm not laughing at
they
that,
can't. No, well, this is what he's doing. Like, as a propagandist, he's making light of that. He's diminishing it. This goes back. This isn't the first time he's diminished the coronavirus, right? It's a hoax. It's a Democratic hoax. It'll be gone by April. Like, it's going to go to zero. Like, he's diminishing it. He's not taking this seriously. 100,000 people might die. He says 200,000. And again, yes, I agree. His hair was blowing around. It was a funny story. Like, here's what you do. You keep it inside your head. You say, later on, when I'm off stage, I'm going to tell my buddy, maybe my daughter, and I'm going to say, did you see that? My hair was blowing, and it was so funny. Afterwards, it's funny. Afterwards. Right now, it's not a time for it. This is not a time for it. I'm sorry, guys. Like, we used to have a separation. We had people that, like, when you go to a funeral, and you're like, my hair was blowing around at the funeral, I'll make a funny joke now. Like, you don't do that. Like, think about if you did this at your grandmother's funeral, at your mother's funeral, because people have fucking died, right? It's not a jokey time. Like, I'm sorry he's the president. I'm sorry he's doing this, but here we go.
On November 8th,
let's go to his friend, this is
to change the course we were
MyPillow.
on. God had been taken out of our schools and lives. A nation had turned his back on God. And I encourage you to use this time at home to get back in the Word, read our Bibles, and spend time with our families. Our president gave us so much hope where just a few short months ago, we had the best economy, the lowest unemployment, and wages going up. It was amazing. With our great president, vice president, and this administration, and all the great people in this country praying daily, we will get through this and get back to a place that's stronger and safer than ever.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
Please come on up. I did not know he was going to do that, but he's a friend of mine, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
He had a
didn't know he
it's
was gonna do
hilarious.
that.
Like, it's hilarious. Like, hundreds of thousands of dead people, like all kinds of people without masks. Like, it's fucking hilarious. Like, I mean, I just wish that there was more dead people. Like, that's all I wish. So no, He didn't know he was going to do that, but he came up with a written speech. So I don't get it, man. Like, I'm not seeing it. Like, I agree with this guy here. He brought out the pillow guy to speak to the nation. You and your crew just became Fonzie skiing over a shark. It wasn't a good look. I mean, and again, we can wait 10 years. We can wait 5 years, and you guys can all come back to me, just like with the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, if you really want to know about it. I was screaming at the television when Colin Powell was threatening people with the anthrax. And I was saying, that's not anthrax. That's water. That's a prop. Why do you need a prop? Your story's not very good. If your story's not very good, you need a prop. What was he selling at the time? Mobile biological weapon laboratories on trains. Oh, how do trains work? Well, they have tracks. Well, how do you track a train? Well, you follow the tracks. So how about we just follow the tracks and blow up all the mobile biological weapon factories, or just blow up the fucking tracks too? So again, somebody's wiggling anthrax in your face. Somebody has a founder of MyPillow who went from a crack addict to a self-made millionaire / crack addict, and they bring him up on stage and he says a bunch of religious stuff off of a written piece of paper, and you say, my God, I didn't know he was going to do that. You know, this guy has it. I didn't make this graphic, but you know, it just happens to be here right now. So you can make up your minds at home, people. Like if you're proud of this, this makes you proud. You're like, I remember when 100,000 people were going to die in America, and he made jokes about his hair and had his buddy read a random speech, like licking his ass. Like, I remember that. Like, it's okay. You can pretend it didn't happen. It was, or you can interpret it. He was playing 5D chess. He's got you all figured out. He's only killing Americans to piss off liberals. That's okay. We'll get the numbers from Alabama soon. New Orleans is coming up next. The virus doesn't care. Check out the Bitcoin hat guy. He's sending me a new hat. Says this one's old. I actually bought a bunch of hats from this guy. I keep wearing them out. I wear them too much. This actually isn't even one of his. This is a crappy hat. I just wear this at the studio because I don't wear it out so I don't mess it up. But yeah.
Talking of the halving, there's 43 days to go. I've been waiting to say that for ages.
43 days.
I think it's 43. Hang on, bloody hell. I've got it wrong, haven't I? No, 43 days. Yeah.
Why not 42? 42 is the answer.
Well, it's 43 days, 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 52 seconds, approximately, of course. So give or take for a bit of variance in the block times.
But this is the only collectible Bitcoin halving hat that you need. This is the only one that I'm getting. It says halving, I guess. Still halving, just as good. We're getting ready for the press conference, hoping Trump would take questions. He said during the press conference, he said, "We will have learned so much, but we will have lost a lot of people." It's dark, man. It's fucking dark. And the second day in a row, he referenced his friend in a coma. So this is starting to reach him. The reality of this, he called up the hospital again. His friend is still in a coma. Obviously, I don't want anything to happen to his friend, but the coronavirus is a killer. And maybe President Trump would think differently about joking about it if he thought about his friend in the coma. Because, I mean, again...
that's a bit ominous.
Well,
isn't that a bit ominous?
Really,
dark,
you know,
Thomas,
this is the same...
I'm ashamed of you. You're almost suggesting...
It's the same thing, man. He's sitting there joking with his hair, bringing up the MyPillow guy. I mean, you have to understand this is the same universe. There's not separate universes. Like, I live in the universe where everything's funny, except 100,000 dead. Like, that's not a universe. Sorry. Like, eventually, the 100,000 dead is going to come home to your door. Like, you'll go to the deli and you'll be like, "Where's the old man who makes my sandwich?" And they're like, "Trump virus." You'll be like, "Oh, shit.
Trump killed him.
Yeah.
Trump murdered him.
Well,
personally.
Again, he just didn't do anything. Rome burned while Nero fiddled, right? I mean, we're seeing it live. It's a recreation. It's a dramatization. There's only 3,000 dead now. We'll wait till 10,000 next week, and we'll wait till 100,000. Like, I mean, it's really, let's just give it some time. So let's see. Also, during the thing, Trump said, even Alabama has flared up recently over the past few days. Even Alabama. And as I joked, everyone knows since the beginning of time that people from Alabama have been immune to all disease. Everyone knows that. So let's keep going. Scott Dworkin says, Trump is letting leaders of corporations speak. This is supposed to be an update on the coronavirus by doctors for the American people, not a way to applaud Trump and his donors, and not one word about the thousands of Americans who have died. This is demented. And again, demented. Like, look it up. This is the definition of talking about nonsense while people are dying. Here's the MyPillow guy. He says it's incredible, 5 minutes, highly accurate. And he's got the pillow right there. He loves the pillow. And then we get the abortion question. It was pretty out of control. It was very random. We're probably going to play it later. And in the middle of this, Alakani Tirling, our friend in Botswana, at Bitcoin Lady, writes in and says that there's 3 confirmed COVID cases in Botswana. So imagine being in Africa right now. Like Alakani, I wrote her, made sure she's staying in, suggested she make masks or have masks, wear masks. Very scary right now. Not a time to be joking about your hair. 3 cases in Botswana. Dan, do you think the cases in Botswana is going to 0? Do you think that, I mean, based upon the amount of the heat, I mean, there's a lot.
Thing tickles me. No, actually,
it's hot. It's hot in Africa, right? I mean, I've heard that the heat kills this disease, so naturally I wouldn't be worried at all, right?
Well, I think that the main concerning thing is probably the closeness to the population density in certain areas. I think, like, look at the townships in South Africa, and I've I went to South Africa, and they're so very compact, and those and if you talk about the favelas in across South America, and anywhere where there's dense population, there's going to be a likelihood of those coronavirus really spreading very heavily and fast. But at the same time, I'm really confused as to why we're not seeing why Italy, why is that so high compared to elsewhere where you're seeing maybe lesser adept areas at handling these things. Why are we just not hearing numbers from those certain countries where they've got high population density but very low cases, very low deaths? Is it just because they're not testing? Is it because when they're not able to provide the information in time? So yeah, I do worry for the larger kind of numbers, concentrated in smaller areas.
There have been a lot of questions about these numbers. The China numbers don't seem to be right. The Japan numbers seem slanted for the Olympics. People are saying the German numbers might be slanted if they're not testing the dead. The main problem here seems to be from the beginning, we didn't have tests. Not having, at least especially in the United States, certainly in other countries they did, but not having tests made it so we couldn't cordon off areas of the country. We couldn't shut down places that had it and control it. Not having tests, we're not getting good information on the dead. Lots of people are dying of pneumonia and other related conditions, which could be COVID. In the same way, it might be being overreported. People could be overreported. So yeah, the testing is the big problem. All the numbers are suspect, but we're just going to have to keep watching it because, it's probably a fake. It's the kind of thing where you want to touch your microphone every time. So like, check this out. Every time he goes up and down there, they're all sharing the same microphone. So I don't know. The whole way diseases spread and the way viruses spread, I don't know if I'd want to be touching the same microphone as the president every time you come off and on. Fauci was gripping the podium, not wearing gloves. Finally, we got to a good question from we got to questions anyway. We made it to questions. Everybody drink. Questions. we did it. Everyone should give us a thumbs up and a share. There's 62 people watching, but we only got 26 thumbs up. That doesn't add up right. Let's try to get to halfway. But yeah, we made it to questions in the press conference. Here we go. We had a good question from the media. Should everyone wear a mask in public? Trump says they're discussing it, taking a look at it. Then he overreacts. We're not wearing masks forever. He hopes that it's limited. And again, he does these overstatements. This is another propaganda technique. What you do is you take your opponent's belief and you overstate it for them. So then he says, doctors will say we have to wear masks for the rest of our lives. This is a false creation. He's just taken their point and extended it to the point of false, making it absurd, trying to then pass that absurdity on to the idea of wearing masks, which could actually save people's lives. He's also making the doctors, the experts that we're supposed to trust, he's making them into absurd, right? absurd. And this is a serious, perfectly good question, right? For everyone at home that like loves conspiracy theories, they're like, the WHO is lying to us. Well, then we get the question like this. And again, he can't even stay on top. He has to do this joking absurdity thing. So let's keep going. What happens? Oh, and he was talking about a GPS application that you could get on your phone where a siren would go off if you get too close to somebody. This, again, it sounds like something possible, but he's saying that that's absurd. So by ignoring these kind of things, they keep growing, and then these apps become more and more necessary.
Isn't though? I think it's Norway. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But there's one country that's using mobile phone data, anonymized mobile phone data, to see who's see where people are traveling and see who's kind of breaking the rules. So that kind of, it does sound like that's something that they could try and put in. Your carriers force in proximity things, and you've got to put what household you're in. Obviously, that's going down the massively dystopian sort of future, and I hope we don't, as in not future, as in
that does seem like a possibility.
Means,
I also know South Korea had a voluntary app, something that you could install. It counted like an inverse dating app, where let's say that you were within 6 feet of 5 people, and then one of those people reported later on that they got the virus. The app would go back and report to everyone that person was near that they might have the virus.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's creepy, but it's cool. I agree. It's both things.
Clever.
We need both. Yeah.
Cool. It's clever. It's clever. Let's take our freedom.
So they asked Trump, what do you say to Americans who are upset that you downplayed the virus? And he said he was proud of the current job. He was unable to take blame for any of the failures, and he called the question snarky. So, pretty simple question. What about those 4 to 6 weeks, which, like I've said already, there's going to be books written about. We're going to have congressional hearing. We're going to break it down day by day by day. What did you do, and what did you say behind the scenes? Oh, publicly you said this. Behind the scenes in the emails and the text messages, you said this. Every single day.
Yeah.
That's going to go on for weeks and weeks. We're going to have congressional hearings about that. They're going to have the same thing on Fox News. They're going to have lawsuits. And the lawsuits are going to do discovery. And they're going to get all the text messages and all the emails and all the memos that Fox News ever sent during this whole thing. And if those memos don't match up with what they're saying publicly, they're in real trouble. So
isn't there quite a significant number of people that would get upset whatever he says, even if it's not a lie?
It's no longer time for false equivalencies. Yes, you can say that apples are oranges and oranges are apples.
It's the point that,
and people get upset over everything, but we have
unconstructive, really. Being, going as a reporter and just asking kind of gotcha questions in a time. I'd actually say.
I think it was a pretty honest question. Like, she's asking about the Americans who are upset. So, like me right here, I'm a normal American. I know during those 4 to 6 weeks, I was stocking up on food and staying inside. So if I, with no classified information, no special insider knowledge, no generals, no doctors talking to me, knew enough to buy food and stay inside, why didn't they tell everybody to buy food? And it doesn't matter about the WHO. Let's not, again, you're making excuses. You're jawing us off the topic. It's a red herring.
Making excuses.
It's a red herring at this point.
I'm adding in variables rather than
drill down.
I'm trying to use 2 eyes.
Drill down to where we are. Drill down to where we are.
Yeah.
We're in a position where we don't have enough ventilators, gloves, or masks. We had 4 to 6 weeks.
Most countries in the world.
4 to 6 weeks
in fact,
break
every country.
between
every country. Right?
Not every country. We had a 4 to 6 week timeline in between China having big trouble and us having big trouble. So what we're going to do in the future is we're just going to look at that timeline. We're going to figure out how many ventilators did we make in that timeline? How many ventilators could we have made in that timeline? We're going to look at the people whose job it was to run the country. That's what they ran for president for. Like, it's not a feel-good position. He wasn't elected king. Like, we can't just say, oh, it's just the king. He doesn't run anything. He's just a figurehead, right? No, he's actually president. He actually runs the government. That when it comes to that pandemic binder, they're the ones who have to get it off the shelf and open it. And they have to do what the pandemic binder says, right? And they didn't do it. And in the future, we're just going to codify by law. You have to do the pandemic binder. It's just going to be in the law. And the way that we're going to put it in the law is we're going to go back and we're going to find out, how did we screw up? When an airplane crashes in this country, not on Tuesday, but every other time but Tuesday, we reassemble the airplane in a big warehouse. And we look at all the parts. And we say, this part is a little janky. It's bent. Maybe the widget failed, right? And the wing broke and the airplane crashed. You know why we do that? So we can be safe on airplanes. When a building collapses, except on Tuesday, we figure out why the building collapsed. Like we study the metal. There was some failure. They used cheaper metal. They didn't finish it. For example, there's a building in San Francisco that's gone crooked, right? It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Joe Montana has an apartment there, and he can't putt in his apartment anymore, right? His putting green doesn't work because his apartment slants now. Whose fault is that? Why did it not work? What happened? We engineer this, right? We have hearings and meetings, and we discuss it, and we try to figure out how to build a better building next time. So next time, are we going to let our political appointees do nothing for 4 to 6 weeks when one country has a major outbreak and it seems to be spreading? And the worst case scenario, if we did too much, we'd have too many ventilators. If we did too much, we'd have too many masks. We'd have too many gloves, and we could stockpile them for next time. If we did too much, what happens if we did too little? 100,000 to 200,000 people die. And he makes light of it and jokes about his hair. So no, I don't think we can stop. We can't stop looking at this.
Joked about. I'm not sure I've witnessed him joke about people dying though. I think
he joked. The whole. It's not, again. It's a semantics question. It's like Nero fiddled while Rome burned. So what you're saying is that that's only a true statement if during the actual conflagration Nero was outside with a fiddle. Right? You're taking language far too literally. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. No. Rome is burning all the time, right? Nero could be fiddling just during part of it, right? Like he doesn't have to fiddle all day. And the idea is that fiddling is a metaphor for doing nothing. So no matter which way you look at it, like you could say, oh, another country did nothing. Or you could say, oh, no one ever saw a pandemic like this before, right? But this is all towards next time. Next time, we're just going to codify it in law. And how are we going to know what to codify unless we know what we screwed up on? And for 4 to 6 weeks, we did nothing.
Human on Earth. I just can't imagine that any other human on Earth would get the same stick for that, like one sentence about their hair. It just, I've never seen this kind of in the media be so kind of. It's just odd. It's just really odd.
We've never seen someone so flippant. We've never seen someone do this at a funeral before. Like normally this kind of behavior is from a movie. Like in the movie Tommy Boy, Chris Farley is an out of control character. Chris Farley can't tell the difference between a serious situation, working at his job, working on a factory, these kind of things. He can't tell the difference between a serious situation and a comedy situation. And in every situation, Tommy Boy, Chris Farley, goes for the joke. And this is fine in Tommy Boy, right? This is fine in a comedy. We've never seen this in a president before. This is a serious time. Basically, every one of these press conferences is a funeral. Every one of these press conferences is where, we do this on this show, right? We're a bunch of goofballs on YouTube, right? Every day I read the number of the infected and the number of the dead. And I don't do jokes during it, right? I'm a goofball on YouTube. It doesn't matter. Like, no one would care if I did jokes or whatever, or, was morbid or, this is, the gravediggers are going to be so busy. Gosh, anyone think about the gravediggers? We can be flippant all we want, right? Because we're goofballs on YouTube. This is a fucking president, dude. It's a press conference that's supposed to be serious. It's supposed, like, if you watch the New York one with Governor Cuomo, just as a contrast, because we do have available contrasts, Governor Cuomo just talks about the situation on the ground. We have X number of beds. We have X number of ventilators. We have X number of sick people. We expect it to get better or worse. He talks about the numbers, right?
But is that not?
I don't think that you could find a point.
Millions of people moaning at him all the time. Maybe.
No, people didn't
got the same reaction from the public about.
Even on the John Oliver show yesterday, he said that he didn't like Governor Cuomo, that he didn't like him before, that he found him to be irritating, and he lives in New York State. He knows all about the laws there, and he didn't like him. And what he said during these press conferences, I like him. I don't want to.
He's smooth. He said, he's good. He's very informative.
He's informative, and he's serious, and he's direct about the information. I just think it's a time to be serious. It's not Tommy Boy time. And we have the reason the media is so upset, the reason people are upset, because he's breaking decorum, right? The normal rules of our society are no jokes at funerals, right? I play by, whatever rules. There's no jokes at funerals, right? That's it. There's no yelling bomb on an airplane, right? We just have a couple of, no fire in a crowded theater, right? It's unsafe for everyone. He's up there during the funeral. And again, maybe this is where the explanations start to go. You say, oh, well, I don't care about funerals. And like, really, maybe you do, but you're just trying to excuse this. And you're like, I don't care about funerals. Just let them say horrible things about the dead. Let them go ahead and, take a shit on a grave. I mean, who cares, right? It's just a funeral, right? And you just keep making these excuses, and it keeps getting worse until you're like, I don't care about the people in the camps. I don't care about this and that. I mean, we're dying. We're dying.
That went pretty fast.
Nurses and doctors are dying because they don't have gloves and masks. People in American hospitals in the richest country in the world are dying because they don't have ventilators, right? The simple Steve Jobs, nuts and bolts. What's the real problem here? We don't have masks, ventilators, or gloves, right? Maybe we have gloves. We don't have masks. We don't have ventilators, right? We just should have made more. That's all. I mean, and it's never going to change, right? There's just going to be this, and everyone's like, oh, you're deranged. Oh, it's his attitude. Oh, it's his style. Or whatever. No. I read his book. In the 80s. I've been watching him. I know about Ivanka and Ivana and Marla Maples and all the women he had affairs with and all the parties and the lifestyles of the rich and famous and the Taj Mahal. I mean, we know this guy, right? He's not going to change. It's not going to change. The core of this is he's breaking all the decorum rules and people are cheering him for it. But when it's gone, when there is no more decorum and they're telling jokes at your grandmother's funeral and, your mother's dying and your neighbors are dying and, we're just laughing our way through it. I mean, it's just not like, I like morbid humor. I like black humor. I'll watch a dark show every once in a while, but I prefer it not in real life, right? I prefer the bodies to be actors and they just get up afterwards and the blood is fake and it's all a movie and a show. This is not a movie or show. It's not like, that's why when he gets out there, he just gets confused. He thinks he's on The Apprentice or he thinks he's on Howard Stern or whatever, where you can tell jokes, where it is lighter, where you're not the president. Like people, it's hard to think, today or whatever, but people used to take the president seriously. You used to hear the president speak and you'd be serious, you'd be interested in it. And people are worried. People are worried that he downplayed the virus. And the thing to say, and we can scroll up, we'll get to it eventually. This other guy is a doctor. He says, if Trump had just said, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, it'd be over. We'd move on. But he can't say that. It's part of his makeup. He just can't say that. So. People in the chat think they think they're that kind of person too, and they think they're the kind that would laugh at funerals. But really, you won't.
Isn't that a lyric by I'm the kind of guy that laughs at a funeral?
Yeah, that's good. Bare Naked Ladies. Yeah.
Bare Naked Ladies. There it is.
So let's see. He says, there's something going on. I'm not making any charges. This is, again, he's disputing. He's saying that the nurses and doctors or the hospitals or the janitors or the people from the outside or somebody is stealing masks, stealing protective gear from these hospitals. Now, in reality, as a logical person, I can think about this and I can say, well, if I used to work in a hospital in the old days and most of the people I'd see aren't sick, I could probably see them without wearing a mask. And if you see someone that's not sick and your mask doesn't really get dirty, you could probably reuse the same mask, maybe even all day, right? But then if there was this virus at the hospital and suddenly I start to see 10 sick people a day instead of one, and I want to change my mask after each one because the mask is dirty and I don't want to get the next person sick if they're not sick, right? Then I would think instead of one mask a day, I could use 10 masks a day. And if I think about that across the whole hospital, whereas previously only the doctor coming in contact with the sick person, now the nurses, everyone in the other rooms, the waiting rooms, the person checking them in, the janitor, everyone now has potential of contacting the sick person. I would say, my goodness, we're going to need a lot more masks, right? But what he says, and again, he's expressing his own insides here. This is something he does often. You can go back and study him if you want. I've read the books. he's admitting his own insight. He's saying, I think they're selling it. I think they're stealing it and they're selling it out the door. I think that somebody, I don't know who it is, mafia, hospital, nurses, doctors, janitors, guy who works there, computer guy, somebody is stealing this shit and selling it out the back door, and he keeps repeating it. Again, this is something you talk about in your meetings. If you want to talk about it in your meetings and you say, hey, I heard a rumor. I want somebody to look into this because I'm serious about it. That's how you get it done, right? That's the way to action. In your meeting privately, you say, I want this investigated. I don't want any masks stolen and sold out of this hospital or that hospital in New York City. I want the whole thing done, right? Damn right you do. That's what you do in private if you want to get things done. If you want to not get things done, but you want to just cast aspersions on people, if you want to use your propaganda power, what you do is you just go out there and you insinuate that this is being done. Insinuating that there's a difference between privately ordering and publicly insinuating. Privately ordering gets it done. Unless there's a conspiracy and they're tricking you and they're secretly stealing the masks or what. Privately ordering it gets it done. You never have to talk about it in public. When you publicly insinuate, what you do is you cast aspersions. If people used to think that doctors and nurses were like a 9, you try to get them down to an 8. Maybe they're stealing. Those janitors that are, should I just stay home? A janitor in a hospital, you're going to pay me $10 an hour to sweep up this goo, all these dead people? Fuck you, right? Just stay home. But these people are sacrificing themselves and they're dedicated and all these other things and whatever. They're up there janitoring it. You think they're a hero at a 9. No, they're more like a 7. They might be stealing that shit. And just in general, New York, you take this place that right now is suffering. Thousands of dead, right? Trucks full of dead. Like, people are scared. They're in their houses. And what you do is you say, well, there's been a lot of mob movies about New York, so I'm going to put them in with the mob movies. And you take these heroes and you publicly put them in with the mob movies. Like, because, again, it's anything to distract. Anything to distract from the bad job you did and the bad job you're doing. That's what you do. So, again, privately, let's investigate. If you say it publicly, it's different. That's what he's doing. I mean, and again, we don't even know. There's not one official case where we saw a box go from here and a box go to there, and we saw a stamp that said this hospital and this was stolen from there, or this guy made $100. There's not a single, like, on paper. There's nothing, right? That's why you do it in private. You do it in private.
How do you know that though? Because if Trump, he's in a position where he's getting more information. So how is it possible that people
he'd show it if he had it.
do not get that information because they're not the president getting information?
If you had it,
how are they able to say that it's not correct?
If you had it, you did it.
I don't understand how we can easily dismiss things that without. I don't know. It's like everything he says is wrong. You can't trust anything.
He's introducing information without evidence. If he had it, he'd have it. If you had it,
have to kind of show a presentation every time he does.
Let's go back down my track again. You're not understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so I announced it. I announced it publicly twice, right? There's nothing else I can do. I've already disparaged them. Like, if people are rounding them up, if people are investigating it, if they've got lynch mobs, that's how you activate your lynch mobs, is you publicly announce it, right? Now, let's go back to my private.
He's trying to instigate people to go and kill nurses or something, or is that? I don't know.
They're obviously stealing from the hospitals. Like, I mean, you're not making the connection. Now let's go back to the private side where I investigated this. On the private side, there's a potential for results, right? Because when I say to my guys, the FBI or whoever I say, go investigate these New York hospitals. I don't want any more boxes going out of these hospitals, right? And at the very least, what that's going to do is it's going to stop it, because we're watching the exits now, so they can't steal any more boxes of masks. And that maybe if we're lucky, we get an informant, or they screw up, or they, are caught red-handed, right?
The mask rat.
That's the way the investigation side works, and that's when you use your official powers and you do things through meetings. And you can be furious in the meeting. In the meeting, you can curse out New York and you can say how they're all a bunch of guinea this, and you can do all the kind of negative shit, anything you want in the background in your meeting, right? And you can get this investigation and you can have results of the investigation. Then what you do is you go public and you say, we had an investigation and we caught this guy with a box. And now you know what you've done? We know exactly who the bad guy is. It's this guy with the box. We know what the bad thing is. It's stealing from hospitals. Like, we don't say that the nurses and doctors are generally bad. We don't cast aspersions over things that we don't know. We say specifically, we know this guy stole a box. We know he's going to sell it to here. We know, again, he's insinuating, Dan. He's never going to say specifically. You've got to understand.
But Cuomo said that on the 6th of March.
He's not going to say, if he said
Jeremy
Jane Smith, the nurse at Parkland Hospital on 4th Street, is stealing boxes, he would have gone the investigation route because he'd actually know it, unless he's just casting aspersions on Jane Smith. You do the investigations, you get results. The way that the system works, that's what your powers are. Like, when you use the bully pulpit and you use propaganda, you're activating your lynch mobs. The FBI is not listening saying, oh, president's got another case, announced it in a speech. Johnny, get 3 more agents on the case announced in the speech. No. Okay, so behind the scenes, you have incredible investigative powers that you can use. You're not understanding this, Dan. Like, we're not going to keep doing this.
But just from a different angle, by him saying this, okay, so for a start, there's multiple instances. I've seen this debunked.
He's saying it because he's mad about it and because he wants to defame the people in New York who are dying. Really, like, he's attacking the victim. It's classic.
But there's no evidence of actually that. What there is evidence is of Cuomo and amongst other people saying that there were previous articles by Trump hating news stations that masks have gone missing. Now, I've had, as I said, local.
Let's investigate it. Let's investigate it. Why would you announce it?
Just a little. So I've had local stuff as well. So he might have had that information. Cuomo's already announced it. So you should write him a strongly worded letter, because he's been in the newspapers saying masks are stolen. But if Trump is saying there's something going on, I'm not making any charges, is that not kind of, if looking at it from a different perspective, saying, look, shit's going down, it's bad.
It's how propaganda works, Dan.
We know about it.
I'm not making charges because I don't have evidence. If you had evidence, you'd make charges. See, all of this is just aspersions. Have you stopped beating your wife? When did you stop beating your wife? I'm not making charges that you're beating your wife. I'm not making charges that you've stopped beating your wife. Like, again, these are some people say you're beating your wife. I'm not making charges you're beating your wife. I think there's something going on. I'm not making charges. Again, it's insinuation. It's insinuation, Dan. He's insinuating that the people in New York are stealing the supplies. Like, you're not understanding this.
Yeah, no, I'm understanding it 100%. People probably are stealing supplies like they were.
You don't know that because you don't have any facts on that. All you have is his announcement that they're stealing supplies.
So they're probably scared. They want the supplies.
I'm not talking about people taking an extra mask or two. Everybody's taking an extra mask or two, and I want them to wear them. Like, again, and maybe they gave them to their kids. God fucking forbid. What the president's insinuating is that there's a large-scale mafia-esque operation stealing masks and protective equipment out of hospitals because that's the only reason that he can explain the gap between what they used to use and what they use now. We already talked about how a doctor might use as many and 10 times as many masks a day, and the janitors, everybody else who works there, the intake people, the nurses, they might use 10 times as many masks a day. But the explanation that he's come up for it is that they're selling the shit out the back door like Goodfellas. This is a Goodfellas reference. Something a bit
more official before making. So don't you think? That
again, this comes back to the same. It's the same issue. It's the same issue with the New York quarantine. It's the same issue with the hydrochlorine or whatever that may have a potential treatment. Right? Again, it's fine if it works, Dan, but you announce it last. I don't know how many times I have to go over this. There's an order of operations. There's an order in which you do things. So with the miracle cure, number 1, you test it.
Yep.
Number 2, you stockpile it. By testing first, you get a chance to test it before anyone knows about it. By stockpiling it second, you get a chance to get a bunch of it before anyone knows about it. Then third, you announce it and you deploy it because you know that it works because you tested it. The way that he went, order of operations, he announced it first, right? This is bad. Now people are hoarding it. Now they're demanding it. Now they can't be properly tested for it because no one wants the placebo. So it set back our goal of testing it. So now we can't properly test it so that we don't know if it's good or not. It's also set back our goal of stockpiling it because everyone else is stockpiling it now because you announced it first, right? Do you see how announcing it first screws up your ability to get a good result? In the same way, we had the same exact issue with the New York quarantine. And again, I'm only going to explain this to you again. He announced it first. So this gives everyone who doesn't want to be quarantined a chance to leave because there's no quarantine. There's an announcement of a quarantine. He didn't talk to the governor. The governor is actually the person you need legally to enforce a quarantine. So the governor says, I've never heard about this quarantine. So what results does he get? Now he backs off from the quarantine and goes away. How do you do it if you wanted to get results? Well, first you talk to the governor. You're going to need his permission and agreement for the quarantine. He needs to think it's a good idea, even if you don't like him politically. You have to talk to him or her. So first you talk to the governor. Second, you get your guys ready to do the quarantine. You get your checkpoints ready. Then when you announce it, you actually announce the quarantine. By doing it in this order, all the people who left New York, when you announced that you were thinking about a quarantine, they all left. So you failed to quarantine them. So if your goal, keep 100% of people in New York so that we can quarantine them, if that's your goal, talk to the governor first. Set up your troops and roadblocks. Announce an actual quarantine. Never announce that you're thinking about a quarantine. Every time you announce that you're thinking about a quarantine, the people in the quarantine location leave before you quarantine them. Like this is a scientific problem.
Everywhere else.
Everywhere else, yes. You can't announce it first. Like
impossible. People
you just can't do this. So in the same way with this mask problem, let's say they're stealing masks and I want to stop it. That's my goal, right? I investigate it. I find out who's stealing masks. I seal it up. I catch them. Like, what if they were stealing masks and I announced it first? Well, first of all, they could just stop. Now I'm never going to catch them, right? I've stopped it, but I want to catch them because I want those masks back and I want to set an example and I want a big news story. JoJo was caught stealing masks. What a bastard, you know? All that, right? I want stealing masks to stop. That's my goal. That wasn't his goal, man. That wasn't his goal. His goal was to make an announcement that distracted you from the reality. The reality is 100 to 200,000 dead because they didn't make ventilators and they didn't make masks and they had 4 to 6 weeks to do it. Anything, right, from this point on, everything's just fireworks. Anything I can do to just distract you from that, fireworks, like over here, my pillow, over here, this company, over here, you know, I'm insulting a reporter, over here, New York is stealing masks and selling them out the back door. Anything I can do to distract you from those 4 to 6 weeks and the 100,000 to 200,000 dead who maybe didn't have to die. So again, that's how propaganda works. That's how this guy works. It's just a distraction. And, you know, you're just distracted now. We can't even get to the video clips.
So should Cuomo be told off for reporting on the 8th without doing a proper investigation that meets standards?
Red herrings, telling me what other people are doing. Focus on what Trump's doing. Focus on the distractor. Don't get distracted. You're just getting distracted. You're bringing up more alternate issues from other issues. If you want to bring up the Cuomo thing.
My brain's distracted right now.
Well, no, it's again. As Brian Williams recapped it, so many brand names, the abortion question. Doctors would say you'd have to wear a mask for the rest of your life. And we didn't even cover that he said, I can cause panic better than you. He bragged about his ability to cause panic during the press conference where he fixed his hair and joked about everything while people were dying. So, and then, he accused the New York hospitals of selling masks out the back door. So, not sure why you're not seeing it. Like, it seems pretty obvious. We'll see if we can get some video. Germany's issuing
now that you've explained it to me, I'm
certificates.
more annoyed about Cuomo for saying on the 6th of March. I mean, that's really grinded my gears. The fact that he didn't properly investigate, or I don't know, just now that you've pointed it out to me how bad it is without going through due process, I'm really annoyed at not just Trump now, but also Cuomo.
Well, that's fine. And I haven't seen the Cuomo clip, and I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. As because I know that yesterday in the press conference, he repeated it again. So he doubled down. He said it twice. The guy gave him a chance. If you watch the thing like I did, in the question, he gives him a chance to walk it back. He says, sir, he's pretty much saying, sir, it sounded like you accused the nurses and hospitals of robbing the hospital yesterday. Are you sure that's what you want to say? And he said, you're goddamn right that's what I want to say. Those people of New York City are mafiosos stealing the supplies that we're giving them. That's what he said. Like he said, be angry at New York for misusing supplies. It's pretty bad, man. I don't know how you think that's going to change things around. I mean, here's Mike Francesca. This guy is a sports commentator from New York City. He's been friends with Donald Trump for probably about 30 years. And he
yesterday
can't
accused
take it
the
anymore.
hospital of padding the numbers they need because they were trying to sell or sending out the back door the masks. How do you go from using 20,000 masks to 300,000 masks? Can't be done. Go investigate that. You go investigate that. You have your military or FEMA investigate that. That's your job. You're in charge of this. If this is a war, they're stealing your supplies, what do? You tell them, you tell the media to go investigate it? What, and get back to you in 6 weeks or 2 months as more people die on a daily basis? That's what's wrong here. There's a disconnect. We're watching one thing happen in our city on the 11 o'clock news every night. We're watching people die, and now we know people who died. And we're not seeing 1 or 2 people die now in our neighborhood. We're seeing them die by the 10s and 20s by the day. They're bringing people out of the hospital in Queens in body bags, 5 minutes from where he grew up. We here know this isn't right. You get the guys in the metropolitan area and ask the cops in New York if it's right now. Ask the firemen in New York who are answering those police calls answering those ambulance calls if it's right now. Ask the nurses and the doctors in that hospital if it's right now. They know it's not. They don't have the supplies they need. So don't give me the My Pillow guy doing a song and dance up here on a Monday afternoon when people are dying in Queens. Get the stuff made, get the stuff where it needs to go, and get the boots on the ground. Treat this like the crisis it is. And how can you have a scoreboard that says 2,000 people have died and tell us it's okay if another 198,000 die? That's a good job. How is that a good job in our country? It's a good job if nobody else dies. Not if another 198,000 people die. So now 200,000 people are disposable?
And then that was a sports show. He does a sports show. So, again, it's real. It's not a joke. It's not fucking funny. Like, I mean, it's not a time to fix your hair. Like, look at this. This is what happened in the world. This was publicly available information. Everyone knew that China was having trouble. And then look what happened. Italy, United States, whoa, look at that. So while you're joking, like 143, it's bigger now. I mean, it's just not a good look, man. Here he is. He's talking about the nurses. Let's go to the clip.
And that perhaps some concern in the past that medical supplies were going out the back door, and that perhaps some hospitals were doing things worse than hoarding.
I expressed what was told to me by a tremendous power in the business. He said that at a New York hospital, for a long period of time, he was giving 10,000, maybe maximum 20,000 masks over a short time, and all of a sudden he's giving 300,000. And I said, no matter how bad this is, could that be possible? He said, no. So there's only a couple of things that could happen. Is it going out the back door? And I've reported it to the city and let the city take a look at it. But when you go from 10,000 masks to 300,000 masks, Mike, over the same period of time, there's something going on. Now, I'm not making any charges, but when everyone's looking for masks, and by the way, that's another thing, we're making a lot of masks, and the sterilization process is going to save a lot of time and a lot of masks. But when you have the biggest distributor of product that distributes to many of the big hospitals and hospital chains. And he brings up a statistic like that, and I know you're trying to make a big deal out of it, but you shouldn't be. You should actually go over to the hospital and find out why. You shouldn't be asking me. I'm just saying.
He directly asked the media to
investigate. You should go over
investigate.
there as a great reporter. I have no idea who you are, but that's okay. You should go over there,
Insults him,
go to the hospital,
belittles him.
and find out how come you
This is
used
serious.
to get
This is the same
10,000
press
masks,
conference.
and you had a full hospital. New York City, always full. And how come
Hello,
now
man.
you have 300,000
I'm kind of with
masks?
the people shouldn't be stealing
Despite
shit
the
and
virus
should be
at all,
investigated.
you have three. How do you go
rather
from
than
10 to 300,000?
But you
And
just
this is
heard the
very
guy.
serious stuff.
You don't ask the
I mean,
media.
I can see from 10
like,
to 20,
he just
or from
asked.
10 to 40 or 50.
He doesn't
or
even
something.
know the reporter's name. He says, "I don't know
He's
your
saying,
name.
he's
I don't know
he's
your
saying, I've been
name.
given
Maybe
I'm
you're a
saying,
good
we've been
reporter."
given information from a reliable source. There's been a problem highlighted.
Again, Dan,
why
you're
you sat here
you're
fiddling over
describing
me
that
talking
he
about
should
this
be.
when you people. So what's that? If you think
He
about it
should
like
talk
this,
to
though,
the FBI directly. What you're
if you think
describing
about
is the
it,
interview he should be having with the FBI. Behind closed doors, you say, "Mr. FBI man, I've heard
Did
from a
Cuomo do that?
serious
Do you wanna-
person."
Can we look at that article at least?
I don't
Can we just
know
look
what
at the
you're
article?
referring
'Cause I'm
to.
just
Like,
curious
you can
to
give me
see.
a link of
I'll
anything
put it
you
in the
want. If
chat,
you
put it in
have a
the chat.
link, you can also share your own screen. I told you a while ago, you can just
I
push.
can't share it. It's got porn on. No, it hasn't really. I don't. That's nothing. Definitely not.
Again,
during the
100,000 dead.
this crisis. Okay.
So,
God.
and
It
here's
comes out and
what
does
finally
this so
drove him to
quickly.
end the conference.
It's when
He was having fun before this.
But when Abbott comes out and does this so quickly, it's really unreal. In fact, one company I have to say that stands out in the job, and I think I can say this, I don't want to insult anybody else, but Roche. Roche has been incredible in the testing job they've done, and they're ramping it up exponentially. It's up, 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 up. And you should be saying congratulations instead of asking a really snarky question, because I know exactly what you mean by that. You should be saying, congratulations to the men and women who have done this job, who have inherited a broken testing system and who have made it great. And if you don't say it, I'll say it. I want to congratulate all of the people. You have done a fantastic job, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Da 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 da.
Yeah, so
And then
he
they
said-
cut to color
he
bars.
said, like, love, basically,
Yeah,
he
no.
respects the people that are doing
Oh,
a
great, man.
great job. Is that? Have I watched a different one?
He
again?
refused to answer the question. The point of the press conference was to answer questions. The point of taking questions is to answer questions. You have to actually be interested in the answer to provide a proper answer. So if you
If
just
a question
dodge
is so
the
loaded,
question,
if a question's so loaded, is there a point where you have to just keep on answering shit?
not
even though
not
it's-
if you got
even though-
class,
even though it's-
not if
even
you've
though
got
these kind of
not if
even
you've
though these
got
kind of
even the
small
littlest
worded
bit of
things are getting in
class.
the way of saving lives.
There's a way of being above this. Old politicians used to know how to do it, where you could answer a question without insulting the person. You know, you could answer the question in a way that makes you look good and they look bad. But instead, you could answer it in a huff and you could walk off. That's what he does. He's not in control. This is not a controlled performance. You could see it slowly drift as the meeting went on. If you watch the entire thing, you could see it slowly drift. And again, we're getting more numbers out of China, perhaps a 20 times undercount of death based on cremation figures, which I've been asking for days. Wuhan residents estimate more than 40,000 have died compared to an official death toll of 2,535. So if the China death count is 20 times worse, get ready for our death count to be 20 times worse as well. As we talked about before, countries that wear masks don't seem to spread it as well. South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong. It's almost like we're getting bad information to not wear masks because they don't have enough masks for us and they don't want us to take all the masks from the hospital workers.
Is that, just to clarify though, the WHO, they're involved in the not wanting people to have masks as well, because they are the main people that, like, if you're saying more people are going to listen to the WHO than probably Trump from around the world, like, they're the main conspirators, as it were, that are telling people not to have masks though, right? You can't say it's just a Trump thing, this one specifically.
I don't really care who it is. I think we should wear masks. They asked him
Yeah,
they asked him directly yesterday, and that's not what he said. They asked him directly yesterday, and he said that it was an interesting idea. They were considering it, which would have been fine 3 weeks ago. We've been doing these shows for a whole month now, and we've been saying masks every single day, I think. If you go back and look at the beginning of the show, we say wear a mask, make a mask for somebody else. And again, we're idiots. We don't know anything. All we know is that if you put this thing over your mouth, less microbes come in and less microbes go out. We've never said 100% of the microbes or 95% or any of these professional masks. We've just been saying that less goes in, less goes out. That's just a logic thing, right? Like you just have to.
A standard vacuum bag is 97%. So you could even literally like sellotape a vacuum bag to your face.
So yeah,
and you'd still be.
Then yesterday he couldn't quite get to the point that you're at, that I'm at, where like any mask is good enough, right? Us normal people. Yeah. He got to the point. He got to the future though, and he got to the future and he said, "I don't want us to wear masks every day all the time, right? Because it would look bad." And that's a big part of this. We don't want it to look like America has an epidemic. But the problem is, by not making it look that way, we're all staying home. No one's making any widgets. No one's making any money. If we had the masks on everyone, maybe we could go back to work sooner. Maybe we wouldn't have spread it so well. Irony, I don't think it's a good look.
The irony as well of when you said it, because you said about Trump was mentioning about the fact they look bad and saying some people see them as kind of a hiding the face, so you're obviously up to no good. But what made me giggle earlier, not giggle, just note something in a time of awfulness, that when you said about the Rikers Island, all they've got sod all equipment, so they're all making their own bandanas. So like on the one side you've got people going, hey, people who wear bandanas are criminals, and then you've actually got, coincidentally, not ironically, but people who are technically criminals going, I need a bandana. So
they do need it.
Not funny.
Well, it's not acceptable for the criminals who might be under a 3 to 5 year sentence to be added on death by coronavirus. Like if we're punishing someone for 3 to 5 years, we should punish them for that. We shouldn't kill them with this virus. So, Paul writes he believes that half the Chinese believe that the U.S. brought the coronavirus to China. Astounding narrative control by the CCP. Assuming no one else is convinced, at the end of all this, the world will think it came from China, and China will think it came from the U.S. Quite the fissure. And this reminds me of the Neil Stephenson book, The Fall. And when he talked about this major event, they had a fake attack in Moab, Utah. It was publicly shown that Moab, Utah had been nuked, and there was a mushroom cloud, and there was a guy who said he filmed it on an airplane, and they had cut off the internet to Moab, Utah, so no one could contact them. So we were just assuming they were nuked. Then later on, people went to Moab and they found out it wasn't nuked. It was fine. It was all a hoax. But it created a separation in the society where half the people believed that Moab was nuked and half of them believed it was fine, when in reality, it was 100% fine. It's pretty strange the way that can happen.
Just going back, interestingly, on the China thing. So on one side of the fence, you've got CCP, who you'd argue that it's almost illegal to admit that China did it. You have got to say that or at least they're saying that America, they're responsible. Whereas ironically in the US, everyone gets told off for saying it originated in China. So actually both sides seem to want America to be at fault, because you can't say it originated in China because that's bad according to the WHO.
Well, that has to do with how we name things historically. In the past, like 100 years ago, with the Spanish flu and the Spanish influenza, we named it after Spain. But now, 100 years later, with the presence of foresight, we figured out that naming things after a place adds a negative connotation to the place. People don't want to go to Spain because they think the Spanish influenza might get them. So we decided now it would probably be better to name things after the year or after the name of the virus than to name it about the place, because it could have a negative connotation on that place. Additionally, when you don't just call it the Wuhan virus, the place that it came from, when you call it the nation that it came from, the China virus or the Chinese virus, you're actually not just negating a place, you're negating a people. So now you can blame the place and the people. And I don't know if we're going to get to it, but the very night that the president was first using the words Asian flu and Chinese flu and these other negative words, there were guys out on the street in pickup trucks harassing Asian Americans, yelling at them, calling them names, maybe even beating them up. And again, that's how language works. That's the reason for decorum, the reason for control, the reason for practice even. Certainly, someone who makes their first speech doesn't become president. You make thousands of speeches. You practice making speeches to become president, because if you become president, your words matter so much. So when you look at something like that and you say, well, 100 years ago we did it that way, so that makes it okay, you skip that 100 years of scholarship in between there, where we thought about it and we looked at the actual what happened and why we should name it that way. And it's a way of detaching yourself from learning, where you can just say that 100 years ago, this was the fine thing, and there's been no change at all since then. There's been no knowledge or scholarship. I mean, we've changed the terms.
More like only 20 years ago, right? Because there's been multiple areas that have been like that's in the last 15 years, I think.
I think as a scholarship issue, I'm pretty sure it's settled.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot like the BC and AD. We don't use the term BC, before Christ, anymore. We don't use the word AD, after Domino or something like that. That the words are. We use BCE, before the Common Era. And then I think it's ACE, after Common Era, or no, it's just CE, Common Era. That's what we live in now. And these are better terms. And if you're a professional historian or a person that's, serious about language, serious about talking, as one would think the president would be, because of the importance and power of their words, especially even on Twitter. A long time ago, they had to try to figure out if these were official presidential proclamations, if they carried the strength of the office, the word of law, or if they were just casual. They had to try to figure out if it's Trump's staff writing the tweets, are they just as powerful? Is it better if he comes directly from him? Again, the incredible importance of this position, the bully pulpit, Teddy Roosevelt called it. He said that you had the strongest, bully means good. It means strong. You have the strongest pulpit. That's the place that the preacher preaches from. It's the whole church listens to him, the whole congregation. So in all of America, you have the biggest podium. You have the biggest place to speak, the bully pulpit. And it comes with a responsibility. At least it used to. And, it's going to matter. Things like this keep coming back. Kelly Loeffler and Richard Burr, they were senators. They're going to be disgraced. They sold their stocks after the coronavirus meeting. So they had a special private meeting. They got special government information. It freaked them out. Instead of telling their people, instead of passing laws, trying to get ahead of this thing, they got ahead of it for themselves. They protected themselves. They were selfish. And they sold millions of dollars of their own stock to save themselves. And that's not what being in Congress is about. If they were normal people and they got this information through normal channels and they chose to sell their stock, that'd be fine. Unfortunately, they're congressmen and congresswomen. They ran for office. It's a public trust. They betrayed the public trust. And again, this is a classic thing like decorum. This is something that comes with the office, the public trust. So, not a good look. Not a good look. On February 5th, Health Secretary Azar requested $2 billion to buy supplies like respiratory masks for the national stockpile. That request was cut 75% by the Trump administration. That's February 5th. So again, these kind of facts are just going to roll in. We're going to put them on a calendar, and later on we're going to have some hearings. And in the hearings, they're going to build the calendar, and they're going to build the case out of facts. And it's going to be horrifying. I don't want it to be that way. You want to see something horrifying? You want to do the abortion question?
Oh, God.
People like non sequiturs, right? They like random things. This press conference, really, just listening to it in the background, every once in a while you'd be like, what? Space aliens?
What the hell?
Here we go.
2,405 Americans have died from coronavirus in the last 60 days.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have 2,369 children who are killed by their mothers through elective abortions each day. That's 16,500 children killed every week.
Yeah.
2 states have suspended elective abortion to make more resources available for coronavirus cases. That's Texas and Ohio.
Technically, all
Do you agree with
surgeries are
states
off
who
right now.
placing coronavirus victims above elective abortions, and should more states be doing the same?
Well, I think what we're doing is we're trying to, as a group, governors, and that's Republicans
Even
and
he
Democrats,
doesn't know what to
we're
say to
just
this.
working together to
He's
solve
like,
this
"Oh."
problem. That's been what you're mentioning has been going on for a long time, and it's a sad event, a lot of sad events in this country.
It is.
But what we're doing is now we're working on the virus, we're working on that hidden enemy, and I think we're doing a great job on, as good a job as you could possibly do. When Tony and Deborah came up with numbers yesterday to say that if we did nothing, you could lose 2.2 up to 2 point, maybe beyond, I don't know, maybe beyond, but 2.2.
All right, well, he's trailing off, but I want to give him credit here. That was an awesome dodge. It was a complete nonsense question.
That was Matrix.
Like, he did a great dodge. He got back onto track, which is again talking about his talking points and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I give it to him on that. That was a solid dodge. The reporter on that, just bizarre, huh? I mean, even again, be in favor of stopping abortion all you want, but realize where you are, right? You're in the middle of the coronavirus press conference where they just announced 100,000 to 200,000 could die. Like, it's a really serious time. And you could tell the way she framed her question. She tried to sneak it in there. You know, she had her numbers and she had her meanwhile. That meanwhile was a big turn. That was a big, anything could have happened after that meanwhile. I mean, meanwhile, like anything. But yeah, that was quite a question. Let's see what else we've got. Here's Dr. Fauci, according to Aaron Rupar, who did all these quotes. Check him out at ATRUPAR. Thanks for all the videos. He says, here's Dr. Fauci immediately pouring cold water on Trump's hope that the coronavirus won't strike again in the fall. And so again, we've been talking about this for a long time. The doctors and the experts keep having to correct him. So Tommy Boy keeps running all over the stage, having fun with numbers and things. And afterwards, the serious guy has to come out and say
We're
this.
prepared. I hope it doesn't happen.
And
Here we go.
We're prepared. I hope it doesn't happen. Doctor, would you like to say something about that? I hope it doesn't happen, but we're certainly prepared.
Look, he sets the mic down so the short guy can do the mic. That was a sharp move.
In fact, I would anticipate that
Savvy.
that would actually happen because of the degree of transmissibility.
So he says, I don't think it would happen. Let's bring on the
He didn't
expert.
say that, though. He said,
And
I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We're looking at semantics. He didn't say it's not going to happen. He says whether it's a stupid thing to say, I hope it doesn't happen or not, because it's likely
Okay, well,
to happen.
going back
That's like
again.
saying-
Let's go
it's
back
like-
again. This is a presidential briefing. So it's the kind of
Yeah.
thing like when you talk to federal agents, they have this thing where when you're being investigated
I
by
hope
federal
it
agents,
doesn't happen here.
you
is the
never
expert.
add in
Whatever.
extra information. You're never
Reasonable.
like, by the way, agents, just add in more information. So in a press briefing like this, given that it's supposed to be just the facts, information only, you never add in extra information saying that it's going to be better than you think, right? Or
You
or
added in
worse,
extra information
or
when you were
worse than you
describing it.
think, right?
You said that he.
I don't think that you add
Yeah, I'm
extra
confused.
information in either way, right?
Yeah.
You're not like, if there's 100,000 dead, you should go out there and say there's 100,000 dead. You shouldn't say there's 100,000 dead, but I hope it will be 20,000, because that wouldn't be true. That would false the numbers, right? You also wouldn't say there's 100,000 dead. I hope it's not 200,000. Like, you just don't want to like have this wavering number, and you don't want to present false hope, right? The reality is everything I've read, everything that I've understood about this, and no one likes to say this, and we're all pretending it's not happening. We're all 60 days, 90 days, whatever kind of nonsense dream you want to believe. The reality is that we're staying inside until we get the vaccine. Vaccines take a year to a year and a half to properly test and formulate. Vaccines are one of our greatest medical miracles brought to us by science. They take a weaker version of the disease. They give it to a bunch of people as a test. They figure out the exact combination of the weaker version of the disease. Then they give it to everyone. We all develop the antibodies. Suddenly, not such a big deal anymore. we start working on the next pandemic preparation, right? Because if this thing knocked us off our boat so badly, and that this little week schedule, what's the next one going to do, right? So that gives us 1.5 years inside till the vaccine. Why don't they want to announce that? Well, mentally, you might not be capable of spending 1.5 years inside. You might not have spent your life reading history books and watching movie after movie after movie. You might not have cross-trained on video games. You might not be ready to play Grand Theft Auto for 8 hours a day, but it might be what you have to do to stay inside and not get sick and to not spread this, right? And you can work from home, hopefully, or we can all get on this dream unemployment nonsense, which we know isn't happening, and all these other things. Hopefully we all survive, we all stay inside, we live to get the vaccine, right? In between now and vaccine time, what we're going to do is we're going to reopen this country and a dozen other countries over and over again, right? Each time we're going to reopen the country, we're going to say, I hope that everything's fine this time. We've taken precautions. We're using hand sanitizers. We're wearing masks. Whatever we're going to do, we're going to reopen the country. We're going to reopen the casinos. We're going to be in a big hurry some places. Other places, we're going to be a bit slower. But in general, the same thing's going to happen at each of these reopenings. There's going to be a new outbreak of coronavirus. Oh, we just did one of these. Liberty University, a famous Christian university started by Jerry Falwell, the televangelist. They don't believe in science. So they reopened, right? They have 12 cases already amongst their student population. We know it's going to spread. We hope that those kids get to go home, and we hope they wear masks, right? Hope the best. So yeah, every time we're going to reopen, it's going to spread. Now, I hope it decreases, right? Each time we have a smaller outbreak, each time we tighten it up, like we get the testing there faster, we get the cordons up, we kind of, unfortunately, liberties are going to be questioned. You know, we're going to have to close down, like let's say Dayton, Ohio has an outbreak. Dayton's have to go off the grid for 14 days or whatever, right? We're going to be doing these kind of testing things that we could have done in the beginning if we had testing, but hopefully we can do now because we have testing. So we're going to keep battening it down. But until we have the vaccine, which is what you give to people who haven't had it yet to stop them from getting it, the only people who can really go outside are the people who have got it and lived through it, right? Because they essentially have the natural vaccine. No one wants to talk about this. No one wants to say that you're spending 1 year to 1.5 years inside.
But is that also because it's not for certain yet? So, you know, like you said, you wouldn't want to give out information if it's wrong.
What do you think's going to happen instead? What do you think's going to happen instead?
So I've been watching this John Campbell guy. Actually, after I think it was Ray recommended it. I've watched a few of them before, and he had some really interesting things that he brought up. But you know, an array of them actually. But things like the definition of recovery. You know, there's the fact is that on the recovery stats that we're seeing, there's such a wide variation in what is deemed to be recovered, etc. But he seemed confident that the UK antibody test is ready in a couple of days. I think he said something like it's going to be £5 a pop, so that we can see who's already had it. But he seems to be under the impression that once you get it, that's it. You are immune. I mean, he was talking about the antibodies, and if that is the case, and we're looking at say 80% of you know the people that end up having it by the time we're finished with the quarantine. Well, in fact, forget that figure. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's going to be a reasonable amount. But then once you've got the antibodies, those people can then go out. It's not going to be a full shutdown. There'll be, you'll be more aware of what the limitations are of who's got it. I mean, maybe we all have that kind of number of the beast. You've had the disease and you're good now. But
well, yeah. I do think they're going to test everybody when they have tests, and if they do have antibodies, they're going to get that little piece of paper that says they can go to the movie theaters again. I agree.
I don't know how
they're saying in the chat, some say that we don't have evidence that having the virus stops you from getting it again. We don't know that for sure yet. There's not a lot of people that have it. Generally, with viruses, I agree with you. Having it means that you don't get it again, at least until the virus mutates. We are fortunate. Again, this virus has been mutating very slowly, despite earlier beliefs that it would mutate quickly because it spread amongst the entire human population. As it actually turns out, facts on the ground, it's been mutating slowly. So that's good for us. I mean, we could reopen sooner if they have the antivirus, if they have the antibodies, like you say in the UK, if you're already 50 to 80% infected. But still, if you have like let's say Prague, Czech Republic, they closed their borders, they all wore masks, and they have 100% right now. They don't have it. They're talking about maybe closing their borders for 2 years to try to just forget about it. Don't get it. Just don't let anybody in. I guess you have to somehow clean all the supplies. I don't know if they're self-sufficient, if they can just go off the grid. But that's what serious countries are doing. They said Virginia is going to have a 90-day waiting period. Other people are saying 30 days, 60 days. No one wants to tell you the real number. No one wants to say you're going to wait till the vaccine. If you mentally can do it, if you think you can start spacing it out and start planning different things to do each month, and maybe you're going to wear your vacation clothes inside, and maybe you're going to have an inside ski trip, and whatever you want to do to try to mentally get through this. Like, we're on spaceships now. Like, they talked for a while about the mission to Mars and how they were going to train people by having them sit in bed for 2 years or whatever. They're going to put you in a box.
Everyone's trained now.
Everyone's trained now. We're all on the Mars mission. You're all on the Mars training. Exactly. Like, you've been drafted. And part of your job is like sitting on the couch, watching TV, playing the video games, watching a movie, reading a book. Another part of it, and I'm not doing so good on this, I don't know that anybody is stretching at home and working out at home, and somehow, not turning into big giant blimp people when this is over because we just ate bad food and sat on the couch. That's a personal responsibility issue. It is a little harder that you can't go outside that much, and you can't go to the gym, and you're just not working that much. You're just not really active. So it's harder. We need to keep up on that. Other stuff like that.
The other thing that they said that from the UK perspective was that, because I think the press was alarmed when they said, 6 months. But what the lady said was that 6 months, but it's not going to be full on quarantine for that 6 months. There'll be all sorts of, depending on how the data comes in, we can see what we can be limited to, what we can flex to. There'll be the ability to have
a lot of that is still under the hypnosis that things are just like they used to be outside, and that everyone's just going to run outside again. I for one, I'm not crazy to run outside again. Sure, I'm looking forward to grocery shopping, getting some more food, maybe get some different books or something, get something different. But in general, I think a lot of people are just mentally going to switch over, that it's time to stay home. It's just not a good time outside. I agree with JSE in the chat. He says it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. Just for today, I'll stay inside. You don't want to overdo it. And again, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but I really do think the reality is I want the vaccine personally, for my own safety and for my own desire not to get this thing. And
so what are your thoughts on forced vaccine? Forced vaccine.
It definitely gets complicated at that point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just going to want it anyway, just because we're tired of this and we're ready to go back, or at least try to go back to our lives. I don't know if it's going to come back that way. Certainly some people, and they're in the chat, they don't want to get it and they don't want to have the vaccine. But if you don't get the vaccine, you'll probably just get the coronavirus. It'll probably be out there still spreading, and you'll be unfortunate enough to get it. And hopefully if you get it, off peak, there'll be enough ventilators and there'll be enough masks. And obviously I think in the future, I hope 3 to 6 months from now, that we are just drowning in masks and ventilators. And we are just like, can you believe we had a shortage of these? And every house in America has a ventilator. I mean, and also for the good of thinking about South Africa and India and the other places this is going to break out next. I hope we can send all our gear over to them, and follow this virus around till we take care of it across the globe. But again, that's what it's going to take to reopen. I mean, that's victory over virus. So I wouldn't focus so much on the corporate idea of when we're going to open or when we can get the market back. I would be more towards what this guy right here on TV has said, Dr. Fauci. He said, the virus sets the timeline now. And I've seen nothing to think that that's not true anymore, that the virus is, Trump is not setting the timeline. Fauci's not setting the timeline. Pence is not setting the timeline. I'm not setting any timelines. The virus is setting the timeline. And when we win, we'll know, because there'll be a vaccine. Shout out to Dove. They're taking this opportunity to advertise to you. Washing your hands is the best way to care. Wash to care for you and all. Promoted by Dove. This just falls flat to me. This just seems... There's this thing Bret Easton Ellis, author of American Psycho and other books, would say. He'd say something was empire or post-empire. And for him, empire was like the old America, like Soviets and Reagan and all these kind of ideas like military and all that. That's empire. But for him, post-empire was this crazy new world, like the decentralized, distributed world. Like Justin Bieber sings in a YouTube video, becomes a big star. That's post-empire. You know, somebody works their way through the system, you know, sleeps with everybody, becomes a big star. That's empire, right? That's the old system. This right here, this Dove ad, this is pre-coronavirus. This is like back when you used to be able to see a crisis and kind of glom onto it. You could be like, the Iraq war is bad, but we're giving people Jeeps. Jeeps are good. Hooray for Jeep. You know, and you could kind of just like casually like, there's lots of deaths going on, but we're just going to casually advertise, you know, in the middle of this. Dove started too soon. They got out ahead of themselves. And no one gives a crap about your soap right now. Like, it's fun that we're promoting you and you talked about you, but no, like, washing your hands to stay not dead from the coronavirus has kind of dimmed my desire to buy scented soap. It doesn't really have the same thing. They're saying that Trump is launching a Darwinian approach to federalism. The state governors are getting more power, but it's putting them into a competition with each other where they're now fighting for ventilators. So your life might be saved if you live in one state, and your life might be lost if you live in another state. This was not the point of the United States. Like, we didn't just let some parts of the country get invaded during World War II and only save other parts. We saved the whole country. The United States is united. Like, it's a complicated system, but it swings back and forth. And this is one of the times where we need a strong national government, especially obvious in things like bidding on supplies. We can have 50 governors bidding on supplies, bidding the price up, or we can have one national government buying all the supplies and then looking at the need, saying, oh, you need this, you need that, and distributing the supplies based on need. This is what we did during the war. This is a wartime economy. We have lots of examples to draw from this. This new thing, though, got to give him credit, right? Everyone in the chat wants credit because this is 5D chess. This new thing that he invented, pitting the states against each other, letting some people in Tennessee die and letting people in Kentucky live. This is brand new, right? Maybe this is something we should be getting exciting about. Maybe we should be filming and televising these auctions so that we could see in real time. You moved to Tennessee last year. I stayed in Kentucky. Oh boy, you're fucked. Kentucky just drink another beer. Oh man, we just outbidded you for ventilators. We're going to save so many more of our people in this state than your shitty state. I mean, maybe it's something to be celebrated, this return to true like states' rights. Like, I wonder if one of the states one day will use their National Guard or their military to go into another state and seize their gloves or masks because they didn't get enough. Like, well, if you lost the auction, maybe you could just use your military, you know?
Pierre Rochard did a tweet earlier or yesterday, whatever, the other day. Time preference gone, and it was actually, the result surprised me. It was, would people prefer or do they think that the US should be split into the federal states? And it was something like, I'm sure it was something like, I don't know, like 75% yes compared to 25% no of the amount answered, and then there were a load which was like show me whatever. Wow. But it was quite a marginal difference. I was quite surprised. You
definitely want to poll the uninformed, ignorant masses about that, just like national treaties like leaving the EU. You want to just poll everyone about that. You don't just want experts or seasoned, studied people who have read books about it making the decision. You just want random people choosing. But that's cool. Maybe we could have them bid on the ventilators too. Maybe random people could just represent their states and in these auctions. I don't know. I'm sure we could we could make a game show out of this. Like, you know, who wants to get
Kentucky,
gloves?
come on down.
Exactly. You're representing your state today. Go ahead and spin the wheel. Let's see what. Oh, you get 20%. Oh, you get 30%. Like, and again, he'd get great ratings. They were celebrating this in chat earlier, how many fantastic ratings he's getting, because we're not looking at the right meters anymore. The right meter is infections and dead. Like, ratings is not even on the board. Like, coronavirus is getting great ratings, right? Everyone's talking about coronavirus. Can you believe coronavirus must have a great press agent? I mean, if I had to represent anybody in this town, I'd represent coronavirus. I'd tell you that. Or this guy. Here we go. Here's somebody we can all get behind.
Hardcore.
The leader of Belarus is bucking the coronavirus psychosis, and he's playing hockey. He says that it's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. So complete abandonment of science. He's going to let his whole country get the herd immunity and live or die. So we'll see if they wipe out all of their elderly population, all of their weaker people, anybody overweight, got diabetes, got a secondary condition. If you live in Belarus, you made a bad choice. You need to get out of Belarus. So we're going to see, like, we've got our control group now. We're going to be able to see what happens when you do nothing. So everyone who's been so excited about denying the severity of the virus and predicting the future, which they didn't have the numbers for, and they still don't. Everybody that wants that, go to Belarus. Come on. Vote with your feet. Join the Belarusian people in fighting this virus by playing hockey and doing nothing. Come on. I'll give you a 4 to 6 week head start. I'll do nothing for 4 to 6 weeks first. I will. Oh, the CDC is advising Americans to wear face masks outdoors. Really? They're thinking about it? Oh, isn't that cute? The CDC's thinking about protecting you. 4 to 6 weeks plus another 4 weeks. We're 8 to 10 weeks into this thing. They're
That's
thinking
crazy.
about
Imagine
it.
if Trump had given them the full budget to come up with the same conclusion.
Imagine if he staffed all the offices. Imagine if, like, the entire agency was 100% full and they were like, man, did you see the number of empty desks today? There aren't any empty desks in this whole place. We had to rent more office space. Oh, man, that would be amazing. That wouldn't be true, though. Let's see. All the tweets are gone. Dude, we won. Oh, no, we didn't win. It never ends. It's just Twitter died. We just killed Twitter. That's it. Come on, Twitter, come back. No, it says you have too many windows open. Let's see. Try to close some windows. Oh, there we go. Big refresh. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it to the top. I'm dedicated. We're strong. Look, we're getting closer. There's all that mask stuff. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, we can't miss the Ethereum guy. Come on, man. Oh, best of the British Museum. Here we go. Palette cleanser. This is what the people need. Look at that beautiful abalone shell, right? I'm not a big seafood guy, but it looks like mother of pearl, right? It looks beautiful. Look at the way they enhanced it with the gold lip and the gold line. That's a
B-Day. Is that a B-Day?
I don't think so. I think these are glasses or for very, very fine drinks. Or
I thought like
no,
I thought
Dan,
it was like you put your ass there and the fish would clean it for you.
Obviously, you don't have any nice stuff, Dan, but because you'd shit in it. But this is from the Watson bequest, a collection of outstanding quality, generously bequeathed to the British Museum in 1898 by our good pal Baron Ferdinand Rothschild, MP, 1839 to 1898. It is a family collection formed by a father and son, Baron Anselm von Rothschild of Frankfurt and Vienna, and Baron Ferdinand, who became a British citizen in 1860 and a trustee of the British Museum in 1896. Named after Baron Ferdinand's Renaissance-style chateau, Waterson Manor in Buckinghamshire, the bequest is a 19th century recreation of a princely Kunstkammer, or art chamber, of the Renaissance. The collection demonstrates how, within 2 generations, the Rothschilds expanded from Frankfurt to become Europe's leading banking dynasty. It reflects the way in which they enhance their power and status through discerning collecting. So this is the Rothschild stuff. Nice, huh? Look at that 23 in the background. What are the odds? 23 Enigma right there. Burroughs talked about this once. He said, once you know about the 23 Enigma, that they always use 23 in books and movies and things, and maybe they just like the way it sounds. Once you hear about it, you'll see at least 3 to 5 more 23s in the next few days. So keep your eye out for some 23s and check out this fantastic stuff from the Rothschilds donated to the British Museum. And you know why you donate stuff like this? Because you got even better stuff at home. Because you're like, this is the stuff we don't even like anymore.
I thought you were going to say it's because the British steal it anyway. Because you're like,
no, he loves
the British Museum. You're like, they stole that. They stole there. They did steal a lot. It's bad.
Well, actually, I started reading the book, one of the books I bought about the British Museum, and it's super fascinating. There was this law in England called treasure trove. And basically the idea would be is that you were like a rich guy and you had a bunch of gold and you would bury it rather than paying the king, right? Because you don't want to pay your taxes on it. So you bury it. Then it's forgotten, right? Maybe even your ancestors, maybe somebody else buys the house, right? They come along, they dig it up. Well, it turns out the taxes had never been paid on that. So it's still property of the king. Anything buried in the United Kingdom under this treasure trove law is property of the king. So you don't even get it. You have to donate it to the king. And later on, it got entwined with the British Museum, and they decided that they'd let the British Museum have the first take of anything from this treasure trove policy. Later on, they relaxed the law a little bit more, and the British Museum can now reward you for turning in this treasure. So you'll get a percentage of it back in money, but you don't get to keep like the Roman coins or whatever. They're going to put those in the museum. So it's a pretty cool law. And of course, as I immediately read about it, and it said that metal detectors were getting better and that there was still lots of stuff hidden all over the UK, I immediately wanted to show up on your door with a metal detector and a shovel, ready to go out there and find us some Roman gold. Unfortunately, this gosh darn virus keeps me stuck at home, and I can't go to England and search for Roman gold. But otherwise, like, I'd be out there with a metal detector, like beep, beep, beep. And I don't even care if I have to donate it to the crown or whatever. I'd be honored to donate my Roman gold to the crown. I just want to find it and take some pictures and look at it and stuff. I don't know where we're gonna look for the Roman gold. I don't know which province or which field you're allowed to dig
Wall.
in.
Just go along Hadrian's Wall or some other place.
We gotta find, and especially now while they're busy with the coronavirus thing, this is our opportunity to really dig for Roman gold wherever we want to dig. But again, I'm 1,000 miles away or whatever it is. No Roman gold for me. But anyway, back to the story. McConnell said on Hugh Hewitt that the impeachment diverted the attention of the government in January while the virus was developing. So we have our first distraction theory to help us explain the 4 to 6 weeks of complete inaction. It was impeachment's fault. So again, we're not going to take responsibility. We're not going to say that we made a mistake, which would, again, we just move right on. We need to learn from the mistake. We need to not make it next time. But admitting the mistake would be the first attempt. Of course, unfortunately, the president was so distracted, as David Corn writes, he played golf 8 times from mid-January to early March as the crisis deepened. So his attention was hardly diverted. So that's unfortunate and probably going to come up many times in the hearings that he was playing golf.
Is that only 1 day a week, though, on average? Is that, what are the rules around presidents being allowed to?
It's more, well, first of all, I don't know that there's rules. I think it's a bad look. I think that if FDR was golfing and people were dying, I remember during the Blitz in London, there were so many reports of Churchill golfing. Like, he was down in that bunker working on the plan to save the British people while they were being bombed. And every weekend, Churchill would go out and play golf, right? And Hitler was a big golfer during all that time. No, I just think it's something you don't do.
I heard he had a big
You just
swing.
don't do it during a crisis. Like during a crisis, you just don't play golf. And again, if you're, I know it's a restriction on one's lifestyle and choices, but if one becomes president, maybe you shouldn't plan your life around golf. I'm just saying it's a bad look. It's just not.
Maybe
so,
like it's bad for people's health when they don't have a release. What if
it's good exercise.
We don't know.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot of time. I mean, golf is like one of the longest ways to get exercise. So if you were a person intent on maximizing your time, like you had a job to do, you could do 30 minutes at the gym, or you could do 6 hours at the golf course. I think you'd get a similar amount of exercise. So it's really an efficiency question. It's a value.
That he had 1 day off a week, and he played golf on that 1 day each week, which would give him his eight weeks of that spread of day. Is that cool? I mean, what's the who decides whether is he allowed that's 1 day a week?
It's
off,
a matter
right?
of how personally affected you are by the crisis. If you lost your family, you'd be pretty pissed off. Like 0 days of golf would probably be what you'd want. But if you hadn't lost your family and you only lost some people that you knew at the grocery store, some people that like friends through friends of friends, maybe you're like, okay, 4 times of golf is okay. Maybe 6, or maybe you're like a golf guy and you're like, I could see it. You got to play golf. Like, it relaxed him. So you're like 8 out of 8. So it really just, I think it's a personal issue. It just, in general, it looks bad. Like I wouldn't want to be out playing golf. Like if you were the CEO of some company and the company was going out of business and you were playing golf, like it would look bad, right? Even if it's just some dumb company, right? It doesn't have to be anything. So let's keep going. As we said earlier, when the president calls it the Chinese virus, an Asian American priest goes out for a walk and is harassed by people. They call him names. They threaten to beat him up. So don't call it after this name. I mean, use the proper terminology. Just call it the coronavirus. Call it COVID-19. Call it, what was the abbreviation they're using? They have like a 3-letter, whatever it is. There's lots of CV. They're calling it CV. You just call it CV. It's easy. Pentagon orders military bases to stop releasing specific COVID-19 numbers. So we're going to get less information about which military bases are infected and how well or how badly they're infected. So, this is interesting. Market cap of yesterday's close. American Airlines is worth $5.2 billion. Delta, $18.3 billion. United, $7.5 billion, a total of $31 billion. Zoom Video, at least on paper, is worth $42 billion. So 3 of the top airlines in the United States are worth less than a video conferencing company. If only you had known about this and you could have invested in Zoom beforehand. Oh, wait, that's what those Congress people did. Damn it.
And Citrix as well, wasn't it? Citrix was Loeffler's choice.
Yep. Yeah,
So
she should have
2 hours.
chose Zoom. She chose the wrong one. She just didn't have all the information. Too bad. Next time. This is pretty good. Ryan S. Adams is discovering the truth about Ethereum. He writes, when a small group of people have the unchecked power to issue money, they're going to issue it to themselves and their cronies. And that's exactly what they're doing. Only I think he's actually describing the United States government. He's not seeing that it also reflects back on his own project. Remember, even smart people can get fooled by this. He thinks that Ethereum is a legit project, that they didn't just print money and give it to themselves. And it is partially a legit project. It's a half and half. They did print money and give it to themselves, but maybe they also made a legit project, right? It's just both, right? It just happens to be both. So he's going along, making fun of the government, waving his libertarian flag, and he doesn't realize that he just exposed Ethereum. Oh, damn. I think we've got another quote coming up here with some more on the Ethereum. Ryan Shea writes, millions of lives, number 1. Jobs and the economy, number 2. Number 3, don't have to wear masks. And he says you get to pick 2. So you can have millions of lives, jobs, and the economy, but you have to wear masks. We can
I'm
not wear masks.
picking 2 and 3 because I believe that this is a trick question, and he's just offering millions of lives on fucking Mario Land or something.
Also,
So
look at the way he's
3.
wearing a mask in his profile. Obviously, you can't trust him. He looks like he's about to rob a bank. Everyone with a mask like this guy right here must be trying to rob banks. Not trustworthy. No good. New York City has the Empire State Building doing a red alert. I believe it's nice for the time, but it's also super creepy and scary. So especially if you live nearby the thing, oh, what a bummer for you. You live next to this all siren thing at night. You can see there's windows right there. People live there. But yeah, TC agrees. Nothing calms the nerves like the Eye of Sauron. Yeah, it's again, you just have to think about it. I mean, the Empire State Building people, sure, they've got these awesome lights in there, and they can put on light shows now, right? It's totally cool. Well, again, it's not. It's off topic. It's out of. It's not the right message. The reason that you put a siren on a police car is so that when it drives through the streets, people get out of the way. So is everyone to get out of the way of this building? I do think that it helps people maybe take it more seriously. They're like, oh, the building's lit up red. It must be a real serious thing. But at the same time, you could also say the opposite. You could say the building's lit up red. It must be a put on job. It must be fake. They're like over, you don't sell it that much. You don't wave the anthrax at them if you've really got the anthrax, right? If you've really got it, you don't just get out there at the United Nations and wave a piece of water at everybody.
That did remind me of that was it last year? There was a guy that a US cop got prosecuted because he was like planting drugs on people, but it wasn't like sketchy looking people. He'd picked like a frail old man who's clearly never boshed his, done his pills or anything. And he literally is like, oh, we just found crack. And he like shows it up to the cat. And this guy's like, what the hell's going on? Like, oh man, that was so savage. He did hundreds of people apparently. Just being like, you've tested fine for crack. And there's this lady like going, what the hell? I've never touched crack. Savage.
Pretty crazy. Let's see. I think we're almost to the end of the news. We're fighting our way to the end. People have been wondering why I've been saying that Fox News might be liable, right? Liable is a legal term. So if they knew in their background meetings that what they were saying wasn't true, they would be liable because they'd be misleading people. So let's watch. And again, this is going to horrify you guys because it's the truth and it's time-based. It's all calendar stamped. But this is what they used to say, and then this is what they said. And that's why they might be liable because they're so completely different. If you heard one of these messages, you would think that it's nothing, and you'd go around telling me over and over again how it's just like the flu. It's just like the flu. If you heard the other message, you would be freaked out and think it's a real thing. And the only difference is about a month in time. So let's watch Fox News. Here we go. Oh, video doesn't work. Twitter video. You break my heart. You never work. Let's see.
Jared?
Click this. Click that. So good. Oh, well, you guys know what it's going to be. One side they say the thing and then they say the opposite. Oh, here we go. We're getting closer.
Impeach the president. And sadly, this is yet another attempt to impeach the president. And sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake. We must test for the virus in order to stop the spread of it. What could be a very great recession, some predicting even a depression.
At worst case scenario, it could be the flu.
I feel like the more I learn about this, the less there is to worry about.
I was about to say the same thing. We don't have immunity to this virus. It's a new virus. It's a pandemic strain of a virus we haven't seen before.
All the talk about coronavirus being so much more deadly doesn't reflect reality. Without a vaccine, the flu would be far more deadly. We are facing an incredibly contagious and dangerous virus that is moving across the world from one hotspot to another.
We're going to call out anyone and everyone who's using this virus as a political weapon against the president. The standard flu every single year kills tens of thousands of Americans. We are now entering what will be the crucial defining 15-day period as it relates to this virus. where we must slow the spread of coronavirus.
It's actually the safest time to fly. Everyone I know that's flying right now, terminals are pretty much dead. We have a responsibility to slow down this virus and to think of other people during this time. And so if you can keep your distance and prevent someone from getting close to you that might be sick, you could save your family, you can save the elderly, and help our country as a nation.
It is absolutely disgusting that Democrats are seeking to use this complex virus to score cheap political points. This dangerous health crisis could dovetail quickly into a political crisis, already feeling economic ramifications of it all.
So again, that's why they're going to be held liable. They're misinforming people.
Going back to one of the second or third ones, when he was like, "Oh yeah, every bit I know about it, I learn. Every bit I learn more, I feel more at ease." And the other guy goes, "That's exactly what I was thinking." It really reminded me of in Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends?
Well, I mean, the way that they're acting is not like serious people. They're acting more like people in a comedy movie. They're more akin to that. And then when we go through their statements and we have the added pressure of time and a couple of weeks, we can see them changing their entire story. So we don't know yet. We don't know yet what the emails say and what the text messages say. I hope for their sakes, the emails and the text messages all say that they believed it and they thought it was less than a flu, and that they actively were telling the truth as of their time, because otherwise, they're going to be held accountable. And a shout out to Jeremy in the chat using that classic distraction method. He brings up the red herring that CNN was doing the same thing. So the way that you actually respond to a question is I say, Fox News did this, and you say, Fox News was good, Fox News was bad. You respond to the question. If you want to do a distraction thing, I say, Fox News did this, and you say, CNN did that. Like, it's a distraction. Like, you're not answering the actual question. The actual question here is that no matter who you are, this is false and bad information. If you've been repeating it for months because you thought it was good information, I'm sorry to bring the truth to you that it's not like the flu and that it's not getting better every time I hear about it. These are not true. So we're going to see what happens.
In fairness, though, surely the more information you have, the more you turn. Now, I think
not if it's bad information. I mean, if you have lots of bad information,
if there is actual evidence, if there's actual evidence of them doing it, and that's going to put them really in the shit bag. But on the surface, some people didn't think there was any. I still speak to people now who think there's nothing wrong, and they're educated people. They're not, I got into a discussion with someone else who was like,
again, it's these people's jobs. It's these people's jobs to read the information. It's their job to look at the casualty figures from China and to say, gosh, if those casualty figures from China happened here, if those infection figures happened here, it's their job to read the news and the information. It's not their job to be ignorant about it and just to say, well, it doesn't matter. We were just joking. We were just kidding. We didn't care. It's going to show. And again, we can wait till the virus. We can wait till the conference and the legal case. They're going to be printing all this information. It's going to be one of these things every day. There'll be a new text message. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said that behind the scenes. Oh my gosh, they said this. Oh, that email was so bad. And I hope it's not. I hope that they, were purposely wrong. I mean, look at this guy.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. We think we have it very well under control.
We pretty much shut it down. Coming in from China.
In April, supposedly it dies with the hotter weather.
It dies.
When it gets warm.
It's April.
Historically, that has been able to kill the virus.
People are getting better. They're all getting better.
And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear, and you'll be fine. They're going to have vaccines, I think, relatively soon. Not only the vaccines, but the therapies. Therapies is sort of another word for cure.
We're talking about very
sort of another
word.
word.
In the United States.
Our numbers are lower than just about anybody. It's really working out, and a lot of good things are going to happen. And we are responding with great speed and professionalism. It's going to go away. Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all. We're going to all be great. We're going to be so good. This came up, we came up so suddenly. This is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries. The coronavirus, you know that, right? Coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. We're 15 people in this massive country. And because of the fact that we went early, we could have had a lot more than that. We're doing great. Our country is doing so great.
Do you think that that the China ban, that was an early, one of the earliest out of all the sort of major controls that countries had put in, do you think that was a good thing or a bad thing?
I definitely hear that raised every single time I talk about the 4 to 6 weeks of inaction. And I think if that's all you did in 4 to 6 weeks, the question is, did you do anything else? I mean, yes, the China ban.
But he was
again.
He was getting a lot of
did
fire
it solve
from that, right?
the problem?
People were telling him that's
And no one. Did he get any fire from trying to build the ventilators? Did he get any fire from trying to make there be more masks? Like, the question is, what did you do? And yes, I hear often that he cut off China, and it turns out in retrospect it was a good move. Now, in hindsight, sure, you can pull up all kinds of clips of CNN worrying about this and worrying about that, and Fox worrying about it, and MSNBC, all of them worrying about it, and this and that. But the reality is, it's not just about this one event, which again is a distraction. What did you do? I expect a list. Closing China. Closing Italy. Okay, that's 2. What else you got? It was 4 to 6 weeks. You had people come in every day for months. I mean, we just played the video. Every day he was downplaying it. So, yes, one of those days he closed China. But the next day he went out and downplayed it again, right? We can get the China closure date on the calendar. We can go through and find out which one of those false, misleading, make you feel good statements he was making on that day. And we're going to. I mean, all of this, the 4 to 6 weeks, books are going to be written about. We're going to have everybody's journal. We're going to have everybody's diary. We're going to have all their text messages. We're going to have all their emails, and we're going to find out. So, no, it's not about distraction. Like, you deal with the issue at hand. The issue at hand is they did nothing for 4 to 6 weeks. Yes, they closed China. Yes, they closed Italy. What else did they do? Anything else? Don't think they did anything, man. They didn't make masks and gloves. They didn't refill the national stockpile. They didn't hire the CDC. They fired the CDC. They fired the pandemic response team. They didn't use the 69-page document from the National Security Council, the binder that tells you what to do in pandemic awareness. We are where we are because they didn't do these things. What's your standard for governments? Competence. Competence. More dead than 9/11. And we're going to all wear face masks. Did they do enough? Was it enough? Closing China and Italy? Was it enough? Did it save your family? Did it save the people you know? It's okay. We only have 198,000 more to die before we reach numbers that he says we should celebrate. But we're heading towards the end of the show today. Just want to share this quick video if YouTube will load today. In 2012, I was at Burning Man and I saw them burn Wall Street. And you can see here Bank of America, Chase Manhattan. They had a building designed after each one of the major banks. And then they burned them. And then they burned them all. And people there at the time said, now that I've seen it happen, now that I've experienced it, I think it could happen for real. And I think we could burn Wall Street down. So it turns out it's not going to be because of union events or organizing or left wing or right wing or presidents or anything. It's going to be because of this virus. And it's going to be because we did nothing to stop this virus. And later on, we'll write books and we'll wonder if we could have done it differently. And it won't really matter because we did it the way we did it, right? And we're still in the middle of it right now. And we're laughing and we're joking and our hair is blowing in the wind. And it's funny. It's funny watching all these people die. As long as you don't know any of them. As long as it doesn't affect you personally. As long as it's someone else's house. As long as it's someone else's grandma. You know, Trump's friend is in a coma. You know, at some point, it's going to get better or he's going to get worse. And maybe that will affect him. I don't know that that'll affect him enough to think about those 4 to 6 weeks. About how we didn't make gloves and we didn't make masks and we didn't make ventilators. And we're the richest country in the world. We can make all these spaceships and all these machine guns and all this other cool stuff like Velcro. But we can't make masks and ventilators. and we can't close down our cities at a national level. We can't have a national-wide stay-at-home order. We don't have a united response from the federal government. We have a bunch of individual responses from the state. We're the richest country in the world. 100,000, 200,000 dead. So, and then afterwards, we're just going to go back and go shopping, and people are going to buy stocks again. And the market's going to go above 29,000, and everything's going to be back to normal. And you're going to sit next to people at a baseball game and sit next to people at a concert, and everything will be fine. Isn't that right, Dan? Do you want to say goodbye to the people while we're watching?
This is fine.
Full screen.
I feel like I'm the dog in the GIF where he's just sat there and everything's on fire now, and I'm like, this is fine. Now you're getting me all worried. Can we possibly, because this is very depressing, and I know that you can always make me laugh. Can we end on a positive note so that we launch ourselves into the rest of the day or the evening, feeling good and happy that although there's all this shit we're hitting the fan, as it were. Don't you reckon young Trump looks like Owen Wilson? But what? Because good news, Tom. Good news. We have some good news.
I don't know, man. I don't think people are taking it seriously. I think people are responding like it's a joke, and that they're just continuing to joke about it, and they think, it's the kind of thing like it's real idiocracy type stuff where you say we shouldn't laugh during a funeral. And then in Idiocracy, what they say is, you're a fag. Right? Now, you see, that doesn't really address my question of decorum or respecting the dead. And I'm even talking about respecting dead people I don't know. I've never met their families, and I still respect them because it's a sad loss. And taking it seriously and having like that gear that you can go into where you're like, it's not my job, it's not my family, but, I can think about it through their shoes. And that's really what this is about, is that normal people look at something like, you look at this, if this was your house, if this was your bank, you'd be all bummed out right now. You'd be like, that shit is on fire. I have nowhere to live. And now maybe it's not your house, it's not your bank. Your house and bank are fine. You could still look at this and say, that sucks for somebody. Or you could say it's time to roast some hot dogs. Like, fuck it, right? Let the world burn.
S'mores.
Like, who cares about decorum? Who cares about, funerals and 100,000 dead people? Like, it's more fun this other way. And I think we're running out of time for that. I don't think the COVID virus and the pandemic really cares if it's more fun or if you want things to stay open or you need to make money running a casino right now. Like, it doesn't care. Virus is still going to be there. And, this thing here, I saw it happen once, and I think we can see it happen again. I guess maybe it won't be for Bitcoin and our hyperinflation and all of that. Maybe it'll be for this little invisible bug that we couldn't respond to and that we waited. So, no, I think we're just going to watch it burn, Dan, and end the show. And I hope people aren't that sad, but we have a chance now to take responsibility for this, or we can act like people in Idiocracy. So you can laugh it off, and we can just joke, and we'll watch the other press conference today and see if he brings out any My Pillow guys, or maybe there's some singing or guitars or something. But yeah, it's a sad and a serious time, and I think it's time to take it serious.
I'm not a fan of the guy, but I tell you what, if he had the cheek, Trump, to insult me, I'd say, why don't you come over here and say that?
There you go. There's a joke we can end on. Until next time, bye-bye.